Yes, that is right. Welcome, everybody, on into the kickoff show for our countdown of SNL's greatest episodes of all time. My name is John Schneider from the SNN. So excited to be with you for the beginning of our summer series where we will be here every Monday night to announce the 50 greatest SNL episodes as voted by you, our podcasters, patrons, fan community, everyone online who contributed to this one. Very excited to share the results of what we have here. So a lot of setup that's going to be happening here tonight. We are, of course, here as a presentation of latenighter.com, and I have a great co-host for the entire summer, Bill. I'm very excited about this. This is the second year in a row. We're going to hang out all summer long every Monday night to talk through a countdown series. So welcome to the show, Bill Kenny. How are you?
John, I'm great. Boy, I've been looking forward to this. We're past the SNL 50, and we're kind of settling into the summer series here, and I really enjoyed it last year. Even a bigger challenge this year with what we've got going on. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun debate between the community, between you and I. So this is going to be great.
Yeah, it's a great time to get to do this. It's the third year in a row that we're doing a countdown like this. We did a couple of countdowns. We did an impression one and a character one that were sort of a little bit of a different format. But I feel like we really nailed the format for this one and the voting. And I really like the way that these have gone. So 2 years ago, during the writer strike, when we didn't know if SNL was coming back or not, we did a countdown of SNL's greatest cast members of all time. That was really fun to talk about that. So we'll certainly revisit that one down the road one day when we add some more cast members to evaluate. Then last year, we did SNL's greatest hosts of all time. So all of those shows are available now. If you look in the YouTube description, I linked out every show from the past couple of years. So no spoilers. If you want to go back and you want to watch those as they develop, those are available down there. This year, we thought it would be fun after 50 years of Saturday Night Live, or 50 seasons of Saturday Night Live, to talk about SNL's 50 greatest episodes. I think that there's some obvious ones that people will say, well, of course, this one's going to be in the top 10. But I don't think anyone's really done the 50 greatest episodes. I haven't seen a list, really, Bill. Have you seen anything online that's ever counted down the top 50 greatest episodes of all time?
No, it's usually linked somehow to the hosts, getting a Steve Martin, Alec Baldwin, Tom Hanks, but it's not a specific episode. So no, I've never seen anything like this. I think we're breaking new ground here, John.
Yeah, and that's the fun, because I genuinely don't know, I didn't know what the right answer was. And I was really curious how this was going to go. The results were fascinating. I just was so amazed with the breadth of results that we got here. The people who voted really knew their stuff. So I cannot wait to present this to you. This is the way that this format is going to work. So for the first few weeks of this show, the first 5 weeks, we're going to do 4 new episodes every week. We will talk through them. Then the final 10 weeks, so it'll be a 15-week series, we'll do 3 episodes at a time until we get to the number 1. Bill or I will be here for every week of this countdown. We will also be joined by some of your favorite podcasters that have been appearing on the SNN over the last few years. So they'll jump in throughout the summer. And then we will be joined by our patrons throughout the summer as well. So those are our greatest supporters of everything we do here at the SNN. It's not too late to register for any of these shows throughout the summer. So we have a form out now on Patreon where you can sign up, patreon.com/the SNL network, where you can come on and join us for the show for about an hour and a half one Monday night and talk about some of these episodes. So it's a really great way to get some of our community involved in shows and podcasting maybe for the first time. So very excited to have all of the different personalities joining us and breaking things down. So Bill, let's talk about the countdown itself, the logistics of all of this, because there's a lot of setting up. We're going to be setting the table tonight as well as revealing the first 4 episodes. So first up, I wanted to know from you, I'm going to get your first prediction. We'll do some predictions at the end for the entire countdown, but I want to know off the bat, how many episodes out of the entire series? So I think we're up to 988 right now. So out of the 988 episodes, how many episodes do you think got votes for in the countdown?
Ooh, I'm going to say 350.
Okay. You would be a little bit surprised that we actually had 510 episodes that were voted for out of the 988 episodes. So that is
Wow.
incredible that that many episodes got votes, that there's so many great ones out there to choose from, and to really narrow it down is interesting, because I find, and we'll talk about this, Bill, as we talk about our criteria for how we're going to evaluate these. When you're talking about a bad episode or a good episode, it's easy to parse. When you're talking about two really good episodes, parsing them through and discussing why one is better than others or than the other will be a challenge. Are you looking forward to this challenge?
I am, because even making my own list and having watched every episode probably at least 5 times for each episode, uh, probably in double digits for most, it was hard to go back and look through this list and say, okay, because your mind goes to, and I think we have one tonight, no spoilers, where you have memories of a certain moment or a certain sketch, and it might have colored your belief in, oh, this was a great episode. And then you go back and watch the episode, and maybe it's not as great as you remember from start to finish. So I think there's a lot of that going on. I told you earlier in the week, you have Steve Martin in your mind, for example, and it's like, well, he's hosted so many times. Which are the ones that I really enjoyed? And you have moments again where that monologue or that cold open, which is so famous and one of the best of all time. Is the rest of that episode great? And that's where you really have to kind of debate. And I think saying 510 episodes is amazing to think which ones might have made it on that list.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. You basically led me into the next thing I wanted to talk to you about, which is like, how are we going to choose which one is better than the other or greater than the other? Because, with the hosts, I felt like, okay, I wanted to look at the data. I wanted to talk about like who really carried an episode, and maybe who, stat padded, who's been around so many times that I'm like, okay, this is, clearly the most prolific host. They've been there over 10 times. They have to be great. But the naked eye doesn't tell you an episode is greater than another. So for me, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that there's something that's really interesting here, and will be the fundamental question for the next 14 weeks after this, which is, how much does a moment influence the perception of an episode? Because it's fair to assume that every episode in this countdown will have at least one iconic moment that maybe a casual viewer of the show will not be able to place when this moment took place in SNL history. We're going to contextualize those moments here for the countdown. But I am very interested to talk to you about, is this episode on the countdown or higher on the countdown because of the moments, or does the episode itself hold up? So for you, when you're evaluating, how much does one epic moment affect your viewing of an episode?
I think it's essential when we're talking about basically the top 5% episodes of this entire series, almost 1,000 episodes now that we're doing. I think it's essential that there is one all-time classic moment, but I don't think that puts it on the countdown for me, because again, that could be so many episodes that were not great, but they had that one moment that really shone and might have stood the test of time 30, 40, 50 years. So going back and watching these episodes as we break down this list is going to be, I think, watching these episodes this weekend, I was surprised how much I liked one particular episode from start to finish, and not as surprised that I didn't like another episode, other than a couple of essential moments. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting to go through for sure.
Okay, so let's set the table. So Bill Kenny is about to turn on the TV. He's going to watch a Saturday Night Live episode. What are you looking for in an episode that will put it as one of your greatest episodes?
I think there's a few things. I think, and maybe they're obvious, but I'll say them anyway. No duds. Now, you can't have, a C minus D plus sketch in an all-time top 50 episode of a show that's been on for 50 years. They don't all have to be classics, but they have to be funny. There has to be funny from start to finish. I think a great host is important, maybe not completely necessary. I think we're going to see a lot of one-time hosts, two-time hosts that were very good, but not necessarily among the pantheon of people that we would put on any kind of host list. And then I think extra points for musical guests. Now, music we know is very subjective.
Very Andrew Dick of you.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, if it's going to be a tiebreaker, I think that's where it comes into play. Am I going to hold it against an episode where Hanson is the musical guest if every sketch is a banger? No. But if you've got Aerosmith or you've got Dave Grohl in there somehow, that brings it up to another level for me. So I think once we get into the real nitty-gritty, top 20, top 15, top 10, that's where you're going to kind of see how we're splitting it up.
Yeah, and that's where the subjective factor, I think, of all this comes in, where we're talking about people's favorite episodes. Because for me, like, I think there's one on the list tonight that I'll say that wins me over or gets those bonus points for the musical guest. And sometimes the musical guest can also win me over on like iconic status. So, I think that iconic episodes definitely, the same way they did with cast members, the same way they did with hosts, like have an effect on my overall viewing of how great an episode is. Like, what does this episode mean to the franchise? If we plucked this episode out of the timeline, is SNL worse? And I think that, how important an episode is definitely a factor. I think when you talked about a bad sketch being in an episode and pulling it down for you, I think for me, it's a little bit less about a bad sketch and it's more about the momentum of an episode. So I feel that whenever there's a great Saturday Night Live episode, there's an energy around it that you can feel through the screen. I talk about this a lot when we're watching a live show and then we go live after, and I say like the dopamine hit or the energy was palpable. And I felt that with some of the ones that we were watching here for this show here tonight that we'll talk about in a few minutes, that there's just like an energy throughout the episode that's carried there. Now, the question is it carried by the host? Is the host so good that they just make every sketch better? And that's a factor that we, maybe will not be as high, because I want the episodes to be so good regardless of the host. Like, I think those two things meeting in the middle are so important for a great host. I think ultimately the ones that end up at the very top of this list will not only have a great host, but will also have great writing and great sketches in them. And once we find that perfect mark there, that's where we end up putting things at the top of our list. So you can hold my feet and Bill's feet to the fire, because at the end of every one of these episodes, we will show you our rankings in comparison to the rankings that you put out. And you can, I love to hear in the chat, like, who got it right. Maybe Bill and I will be the same on things. Maybe you prefer my list or Bill's list. And that's always really fun that we do here every single week during the countdown. Okay. Bill, anything else you want to set up on your end?
No, I think we've covered it. I think, as you said, there's so many people that voted, so many different episodes. So if your favorite's not on here, I don't think that you can say, wow, geez, that's terrible, because, it might have been, and I'm sure we'll get to this as we get to the end of the list, with that, not to put the cart before the horse, but, honorable mentions, ones that almost made the cut. And that's really, it's hard to do this. As I said, when I made my initial list to send in, I probably had 85 episodes. I had to pare down the best 85 episodes down to 50. So there's 35 I had to leave off my list that I think are among the greatest of all time. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what people's opinions are, and yours.
Yeah, 100%. And we will reveal those other, just missed the list and other episodes that are important. Some of the favorite ones that didn't make the list. We'll do that all during the final episode of this countdown, as we're getting closer to season 51 of Saturday Night Live. Okay. One more announcement to make before we kick things off here tonight. So I wanted to wait a little bit into the show just so I don't get in any trouble, but I have an extra perk just for our friends on Patreon. So after we do these episodes, because we don't want to spoil anything, we want people to get a chance to listen to the podcast before this happens. But after we do these episodes and they're out on YouTube and it is fair game, I will then post the episodes on Patreon for our patrons to get to watch them. So they will be linked over there. They will only be available until the next week's show. I can't just post a bunch of SNL episodes over a Patreon and keep them forever. So I hope you can understand that. But I know that not everyone has access to everything. So I really want our patrons to be able to watch these throughout the countdown. So if you are there and you are supporting our show, this is a huge thank you to you. So we will put those up on there after every week over at Patreon, so you can check out everything and follow along in the countdown. As long as no one's gets me in trouble, I will continue to do that throughout the entire countdown series. So that is the plan here. So I hope you can enjoy each and every episode and then follow along and let us know what you thought, because as we come back next Monday night, I would love to know if all of you have gotten a chance to watch the episode, and let us know if we got this right, Bill and I. Okay, Bill, are you ready to kick things off?
I am, and what a one to kick it off with, John.
All right, let's do this. This definitely is, probably a no doubter. This is one that I think was on a lot of people's list to get on the show naturally. And here we go. At number 50, we are going to head back in time to October of 1990, season 16, episode 4. And let's talk about Patrick Swayze's episode from season 16, episode 4, musical guest Mariah Carey. And this is an interesting one, episode 290, Bill, where we're going to discuss everything we saw when the legendary Patrick Swayze came to host the episode. So, Bill, let's get some overall thoughts here for number 50 on the list.
Roadhouse. That's all. Yeah, listen, this right off the bat, what I said about musical guest is something that immediately puts this in for me. This is one of those that obviously has a very classic sketch that everybody knows, that everybody talks about to this day, that we'll get to in a little bit. But watching this from start to finish, what a great episode. We're right smack dab in the middle of the second golden era. I remember this very clearly because this was my first moment of loss with the show, having lost Lovitz and Nora, and having all these new people come in and not really knowing what to expect from them. And I think especially with this episode, obviously we've got the Farley of it all, but we get to see some of these other people who we're just getting to know. Whether or not they go on to great SNL careers is another story, but we get to see some shining moments for some featured players along with the classic golden era cast. I love this episode. I love everything about this episode.
Yeah, so I want to take this back to a place in time, right? So coming out of season 15, Bill said we just lost two players that are very important to the show. So John Lovitz has left the show, or was basically, he wanted to stay, but then he wasn't able to because he was filming a movie. Nora Dunn, there's the whole Andrew Dice Clay thing, and then she ends up leaving the show. So we lose a couple people and we gain a couple cast members at the beginning of season 16. We get to see Chris Rock and Chris Farley join the show. This is actually Rob Schneider's first episode as cast member. Him and David Spade have already been hired as writers, but we get to see him on screen in the White Trash Bed and Breakfast sketch. And I think that the feeling is that this is the first seed of change to a format that is really working. Finally, we got to another golden era. Every episode feels really solid and people are loving the show on a week to week. And then you lose Lovitz, and there's, some talk of like, okay, well, when will Dana leave? And Dennis Miller and Jan Hooks are maybe getting closer as well. And we get these new cast members. And yes, Mike Myers had, joined the show, very, very smooth transition. But this was sort of a big deal. Season 16, they're going to hire a lot of new cast members, and it's going to continue to go on 17 and 18. And I think that early in 16, we're waiting for that moment of getting to see, can these new cast members fit in with the old guard? And clearly, Bill, there is a moment in this episode that is an iconic moment that is perhaps the reason this episode makes the countdown. So I think, we're not going to do sketch by sketch breakdowns here. We'll talk about all the things we want to talk about. But I think we have to start with the iconic moments here, because that's probably what people want to hear us talk about first. And let's head over to that square on the right over there in the middle, which is the Chippendales audition sketch. So this is a sketch where we get to see Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley audition to become a new dancer at Chippendales. We get to see some judges who are going to judge them, who are taking this competition very seriously, as we see Patrick Swayze and Chris Farley dance, take off their shirts. And this is a sketch that was pretty huge at the time, and one that I think has since then become largely debated of like, was this wrong for Farley? Or was this actually Farley's breakout moment? And Spade has come out many times and talked about this in modern times and said, like, no, he loved it. Everyone loved it. Everyone was cool with it. But certainly, like, this is an interesting moment to review now, so many years later, 35 years later. So, Bill, let's talk about Patrick Swayze and Mariah Carey's episode and start with Chippendales.
Yeah, I really hate the narrative that's kind of come into play about the whole fatty falls down thing. And maybe that is the case for Farley later on in his career on SNL, but this is somebody who's trying to break through. These 4 episodes in, as I said, we've already got this iconic cast in place. We haven't had anybody with this kind of energy of a Farley since Belushi. Obviously, the Belushi Farley comparisons go back and forth forever. But I think this is just such a fantastic moment what you get to see here. He's throws himself into it completely, literally and figuratively. And, yeah, there's a couple of fat jokes in there, but it's not about that. It's about, look at this guy and the way he's able to move. He's dancing like a superstar. He's able to keep up with Swayze in every possible way. And, you're talking about the sexiest man alive at this time in Patrick Swayze, going against this unknown heavyset dude who hasn't had a moment yet, really. He's been, in a couple of sketches, but nothing that really sticks out. And it's a moment that lives in time. And yeah, it is probably the reason that it makes this list. But again, I think there's so much else here besides this that kind of catapults it into the conversation with the greatest episodes.
Yeah, my 2 cents on this has always been that I feel that this isn't a sketch that is just making fun of somebody fat dancing. Like, it's not that. Like, there are other things to this sketch that make it so good. And number one is that Patrick Swayze is so supportive of Farley in the world of the sketch. And he wants him, he's like, are you sure you don't want to hire my friend? And I think like that aspect of it like does take it down to like a more fun human level of this whole thing. Like there is the eye-catching moment. I think you said like the Belushi comparison. There is this moment of like someone who's large in stature eating up the stage, having this energy on there that is so different than everything we had seen from season 12 through season 15, because as like Lovitz, Phil, Dana, Kevin, like they're not like the physical performer in the way that like they can do physical stuff, but it's not like they're gonna like just like you can't take your eyes off them physical. Like Farley had that quality, even despite like him being a big guy. Like he just had that thing where you just like didn't know what was going to happen in a sketch, sometimes to his detriment later in his career. But at this first moment, like to be there and watch this live, I'm sure, Bill, it was just like you had to be there type of moment to just know what this was like to see Farley for the first time do something incredible on the show.
Yes, and I think one of the things that'll come up, it comes up a couple of times in the 4 that we're going to talk about tonight, but the audience reaction, it's always key, especially if you're watching the original live episode. You can hear it. It's palpable when they see him come out. Obviously, the joke is right there in front of you, even before he takes his shirt off. But when he starts to dance and the audience is completely into it, and they don't know how this is going to go. They do pick Swayze after all, and Neela makes the joke. Well, it's because you're very heavy or something along that line. But that's not what, like you said, that's not what the sketch is about. I think that you can do things like this in all kinds of realms that don't have to be particularly about making fun of the person. And that's not what this is about at all. And so, again, like I said, I'm still in mourning. I don't know how to handle this. Like you said, am I going to lose other people like Jan and Dennis and Phil in the coming year or two? And some of them do. So I don't, this is my first cast. I don't like interlopers at this point. I don't, this was not something that SNL did in the first 15 years. They were very clearly broken down into 5-year increments. Obviously, Ebersol had some different changes and things like that, but it was mostly in those boxes. So, there was no hope of somebody staying 8 or 9 years. So to see somebody like Farley and kind of give him the side eye and like, all right, let's see what this guy can do. Is he actually going to be, and the show does take that turn into a different direction from everything we had seen the previous 4 seasons. Again, some of that will be bad in the future, but I think at this particular moment, it kind of freshens up a show that is now into its 5th season of this cast.
Yeah, it does remind me a little bit of my feelings about that third Golden Era, where then in 2010, like we had Bobby come in, which is sort of like the Mike Myers, where he just like integrates into the group. But then you have Taron Killam and Jay Farrow, Vanessa Bayer, like they all come in, and it's like Taron Killam with Les Jeunes de Paris, where I see that like many years later in 2010, and I'm like, oh, okay, like this is cool and this is different, and I think you sort of get that here. And I want to also shout out, like, I think Kevin Nealon's role in this sketch is so good. Like he does that straight man. Like it doesn't work for me on Weekend Update really, but on in sketches, like his dry wit, I think is great. And the whole like, we just thought that Adrian's body, not Adrian Brody, Adrian's body was just much better than yours. And like the way he says that, just like so seriously, as if like this whole thing is the most serious thing. I think he is 100% a crucial part of that sketch and why it is so good. So I think that, you know, I think that this episode probably lands at 50 because of this sketch and that, you know, that being pushing it up the list. But there's a lot else here to talk about, Bill. So what else from the episode really stood out to you as to why this one made it to 50?
Oh, so many different places to go. When we talk in modern times about these long cold opens and these political cold opens and the never-ending cold opens, this is a parody of a movie that the host is in. It's a minute and a half, in and out, live from New York at Saturday night. Boom. I mean, would we just fall out of our chairs if anything like that happened today? Like that's just so insane. And it's funny. It tells the joke. It does what it's supposed to do. Cold open is not supposed to be this epic thing. It's supposed to be an introduction to the show, like Wolverines and things like that. Boom, boom, boom. Get to the opening credits. Get to the monologue. I love that. Jan Hooks is fantastic in this. The whole Dirty Dancing thing. Phil being the what do you even call those people at square dances? Swing your
MC.
partner round and round. Yeah, I guess MC is fine. But yeah, everybody does great in this, and it's like I said, in and out. One of my favorite moments, and then another quick moment. Sam Walton, the tax ad. Maybe not the funniest joke. The funny is the second time it comes back, where you get somebody crashing plates off set and Phil playing into it. I'll take care of that too. And never breaking. The Iceman is just completely into it and doesn't care that his whole moment has been ruined by somebody breaking glasses or dishes off set. And Phil just shows his ability in that moment.
Yeah, you know, this episode is really interesting for me because I think that this one sort of fits the criteria of what I am looking for from a great episode. It has that meeting in the middle of the host is so good that they make sketches better, but also the sketches themselves would be really good with any host. And it's like that's why I was like, oh, maybe this is a no doubter at 50 because it's not an obvious one because I think it gets overshadowed by Chippendales. But this episode has a lot of really good sketches. So you mentioned the dirty square dancing. I think it's a really fun cold open way to start things. Very physical. Again, like it's so great to see. Like you would never see this nowadays, like having a cold open that is like so much movement on the screen. Like they don't do stuff like this, Phil.
No, never
Yeah.
would we see this. I mean, you have so many extras going on here. It's only the three main players, and Jan and Phil and Patrick, and just everybody else is not in the cast. So that's also something we would never see today.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. Then we go to the monologue, and the monologue where he's dancing with his wife, Lisa Nemi, like that again, like I really just like fun. You don't want to take your eyes off the screen because you never know what's going to happen. We get Hans and Franz in here, and Bill, have you ever given your take on Hans and Franz?
I don't know that I have. It's of that era where they did it way too much, but we're kind of petering out here at the end. I think there's only 3 or 4 more times. I think this is kind of a fresh take with Kevin daydreaming about Patrick, and the whole horse thing is really, really funny. It is one of my favorites from that time. I don't know that it holds up as far as like an all-time classic sketch at this point. But yeah, it's one of those that made my teenage years.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of the Hans and Franz at the beginning. I sort of got tired of them, like a little bit like a Belushi Samurai, where I was like, I've seen all the beats
Right.
before. This one actually is pretty good though, because they sort of changed the format where you expect them to be just obsessed with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and instead we get Kevin Nealon's Franz being obsessed with Patrick Swayze, and then we get this sort of like dream sequence of him like riding on a motorcycle with him, and I think that makes it feel a little different. Then we get to Ghost, which I think it would be important to stop down here. It's a sketch that I don't think people ever talk about, but Victoria Jackson puts on a show here, and it's stunning to watch because out of all of the cast members that are on the show in this era, like it's fair to say that she's the one that stands out as like the least best. So for
Well
me,
said.
yeah, I was like, just every time I watch this, I am thinking, I'm like, is like that has to be Jan Hooks, right? Like just how good that she is in this sketch. It's unbelievable, Bill.
Yeah, it's a top 3 all-time Victoria moment. I think the Paul Simon one with the Christmas gifts on the deserted island would be up there, but this is up there. She's basically, not even really interacting because Swayze's supposed to be a ghost, walking around doing these disgusting things. I think when she starts singing Unchained Melody in that terrible voice, it is one of the best moments in this whole sketch. But yeah, she really brings it here, and I do wonder if she sees. Now, she's one of only 2 female cast members, which is absolutely insane to think about. With Nora leaving, we don't get Julia for another week or two. So maybe she's seeing an opportunity to kind of expand herself here. Alas, it doesn't really happen, but she does have this great moment for sure.
Yeah, and they do in the Colin McLaughlin episode, the season 16 episode 1, mention that
That's
there's
right.
only 2 women in the cast, and
Yeah.
it is just it's a weird thing to watch for a couple episodes there. This one was I think it was a Conan, Smigel, Downey, Tom Davis, and Terry Turner sketch they all put in this one. The Ghost parody, of course, with Patrick Swayze being in the building. You spoke about the runner we got here with the tax ad and Phil Hartman. Really interesting stuff there from Phil. It's very like dry. And I almost think that the crash that you said makes it even better,
Yeah.
because otherwise it would have been a little bit dull. It was a little like 70s esque when you go back and you watch that one.
Yeah, they weren't really big on doing these, especially live in this era. So it is interesting to see. And Walmart, I mean, I'm not sure exactly where they're. We didn't have Walmarts in Pennsylvania at this point. It was a couple of years away. So I do wonder if people even knew who Sam Walton was outside of a couple of, the South and California and things like that. So it is a big swing for something like this. And again, I don't think it works as well unless you have that unscripted moment.
Yeah, I think that has to have been a Downey sketch. I don't have the credit for that one, that runner, but I think just like the subject matter and the dry nature of it feels like very Downey. So
Yes.
yeah, that one definitely helped by the crash. Then we get to Mariah Carey. So this is interesting, right? So Mariah Carey in 1990, I mean, talk about like, we've seen a lot of people come onto the show and debut as huge stars. People don't remember how big of a deal Mariah Carey was like, and the fact that they got her here and she sings Vision of Love, and she's going to continue to go on to become one of the biggest performers in the world. This is the one tonight that I'm like, the music, you can't help but add to your enjoyment of the episode.
100%. If you want a modern comparison, think about Sabrina Carpenter coming onto SNL in '49, just kind of breaking through as a superstar. This was huge. I mean, Arsenio broke her as far as American debut earlier in the summer, and then of course she goes on to do one of the NBA Finals games. She does America the Beautiful. So she has a couple of big moments before this, but SNL's on break at that point. They don't waste much time making sure that they get one of the most upcoming people. There was nobody like Mariah at this point. There's so many divas, so many great female artists these days. There was nobody in this kind of realm that really fit Mariah Carey's personality and ability. So maybe Whitney Houston, but this was a really big get at a very early time in her career.
Yeah, and I just remember watching through to season 16, and I see that like, okay, now we're getting Mariah Carey, and I was like, oh, this is kind of a big deal. Like, she's huge, and this is like, they got Madonna on the show. Like, if you see all the people are gonna come, like eventually you'll hear about how big of a deal it was for Adele to come over to America. Like, there's a lot of like really like great women in music that have been on the show, and this wasn't, like you said, like her debut as a musician that just wowed everybody, but she is on the precipice of becoming a huge star, and I think that her performance of Vision of Love is really fantastic in this episode. So that, to me, I will say bonus points there for Mariah Carey. And then we'll go ahead. You mentioned Arsenio, right? So let's go to the Tonight Show, where we're going to talk through. You like that transition? Let's talk through. Here we get a pretty infamous edition of the Tonight Show sketch that I think is, sort of an iconic moment that I don't think that people realize is from this episode, where Dana's going to play Johnny Carson, talking about how out of touch he is. And Dana's told the story a cajillion times, but the story essentially is that Johnny Carson heard that or saw the sketch and said to Ed McMahon, all right, well, they're making fun of us now, so maybe it's time to go. And Dana seems to say that this may be led to the eventual retirement of Johnny. And it's interesting that he does mention about how like Jay Leno is going to replace him one day. And, Arsenio comes on the show. Chris Rock, we get an appearance from him on the show as Arsenio. So it is a really interesting time capsule moment that we have in this episode, Bill.
Yeah, and it's really hard to explain to people today how barren late night television was as far as talk shows. ABC had never had a talk show. They had Nightline. CBS was showing really shitty crime dramas from the 70s at 11:30 at night. Nobody wanted to take on Carson. There was a lot of syndicated shows like Rick Dees and things like that, but nobody really broke through until Arsenio. And then it was suddenly like, whoa, what's happening here? He's telling all these great jokes. He's getting the future president of the United States on his show playing saxophone. And Johnny's still telling jokes from the 70s. And it became very obvious that the disconnect that was going on. And I've always loved this sketch, the sketch series. I think maybe this one was a little more mean-spirited. The whole Susan Day thing, thinking that she was still on the Partridge Family 20 years after the show went off the air, was probably where Johnny had a problem with how he was being portrayed. But as far as the impressions, I think they're spot on. I think seeing Dana and Phil be able to play together like this is one of the highlights of this era.
Yeah, and Phil's McMahon just kills me every time. Yeah, unbelievable.
And John, do you know this is where I don't know if they were still doing SportsCenter Did You Knows when you started watching SportsCenter, but Chris Myers started doing that because of Dana. He was doing an impression of Dana doing Johnny, and then they incorporated it into SportsCenter, and then it was part of SportsCenter for like 20 years, where they ended the show with Did You Know? The whole Did You Know thing came from the SNL Carson sketch. Did you not know that?
Not know that. I did not know that. Yeah, I did not know. And actually, I'll just a little bit John lore. So I grew up on SportsCenter RE. Not
yes.
So I had the Canadian SportsCenter up here where they did not do that. But ooh. Yeah, it is a very that's a great piece of lore. That's good to know. This is I'd say a pretty fascinating sketch to keep track of, as one that makes this episode better than you might realize. Then we head to White Trash Bed and Breakfast, and this is like right away you see Jan in this, and you know that this is a sketch with the Turners. Feels like written in Jan's voice. This is so perfect for her. And basically, essentially they have Dana over as like a tourist, and then Phil ends up coming home, and then he's deciding what to do with his family at the White Trash Bed and Breakfast. And I think Phil and Jan are so good in this. Like, we talk about all of the sketches where they're together, but this one never gets brought up because obviously there's a million of them, but this is good too, Bill.
Yeah. And I think you and I briefly spoke about this when you came on to talk about the Turners on the SNL Hall of Fame.
True.
This kind of slice of life, Southern living thing, maybe exaggerated in this scenario. But this is the old style parade sketch. This was not invented when we had 17 cast members in season 45. Like this has been something they've done for a long time. This is the first time we've really seen the cast expand. We've got 12 cast members at this point. By the end of the year, I think we have 14, 15. But this is a way to make sure everybody's getting a little piece of the pie. And yeah, Jan is really good here. Dana's kind of doing an impression of his own George Will impression, but it's still very good. Being the straight-laced guy who comes in off of the road and is staying at this terrible trailer. I think Victoria's good in this too, for the brief moment that she has coming out as the smoking pregnant woman. So yeah, there's a lot of good performances in this.
Yeah, it really gets you feeling, because this is one of maybe the only sketch in the episode that you sort of see most of the cast in. Like I said, you even get Rob Schneider in his first sketch as like a regular cast member or a featured cast member, and it gives you that feeling that sometimes we talk about in modern days, where there is a host that comes in and sort of energizes the group. And I have a feeling like that's what makes this sketch better than you realize, is that everyone's really excited for Swayze to be there, and it makes sketches like this better. Like, you're just coming off of George Steinbrenner hosting the week before, and like I could imagine that they probably weren't. I mean, there's some fun stuff in there, but like the cast probably isn't so excited about George Steinbrenner hosting. But I think they have to be excited about Patrick Swayze being there, and I think you get some of that like really interesting, fun material from the writers, from the cast, when you have someone like him there. And that includes the final sketch of the night, where we get, people always say like, okay, when did the 10-1 start? Like, when did we really get those 10-1 vibes? This is pure 10-1. This is a Jack Handy sketch mousetrap seminar, where we're going to get a class where everyone's asking questions to Kevin Nealon about mousetraps and cheese. And it is as ridiculous as you can imagine for the end of a night. And it is perfect for me to end an SNL episode with something like this, Bill.
Yes. All of these really, really dumb students trying to figure out how to get the cheese out of the trap without hurting themselves. Dana running up to the board when he puts the film on and trying to get the cheese that's in the film is a great moment. Yeah, I mean, this is, they loved doing these classroom sketches back then. I don't think we get very many of those now, but these were a staple of the late 80s, early 90s. And this is one of the better ones, one of the wackier ones for sure.
Yeah, I really like this. And it took me rewatching it for this show here that we're doing tonight to make me realize, like, this is a really good episode. Like, it just, like I said, it is completely overshadowed by Chippendales. But when you go through the rundown, like, there's not a lot of misses. I think, we didn't really talk about the super feud sketch with Swayze and Dana, but like, and the tax ad one, like, again, if you didn't have that crash, like, it's probably not there, but there's not a lot of duds in the episode. Dennis does a pretty good job on Update. We get A. Whitney Brown with a big picture. Like, it is a pretty strong episode from start to finish, and for me totally justifies its place here in the top 50. How do you feel about it overall after rewatching it?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised going back and watching this, how much of it still hits. Again, the super feud is not bad either. I think it's, Dana kind of hamming it up, but there's nothing I would put in here that says, no, this sketch is terrible. I think we have a solid sketch from beginning to end. As you said, a good weekend update, a lot of topical stuff going on there. One of the last A. Whitney Browns that we get. He'll leave in a few months. So I always appreciated his time. And Mariah Carey, I mean, just puts it over the top. Like, this is a great episode. Plus, John, Randy Jackson appears in Vision of Love. So you have to keep your eye out for him. But a young, fade haircut, Randy Jackson appears in the background. So added bonus, I guess, for the American Idol fans.
Yes, and that's true. I am a big fan of American Idol, especially those early seasons. And he talks a lot about, when he's looking for the next Mariah. Like, that's when they find Kelly Clarkson, they're looking for the next Mariah Carey. And I think that's just a really cool moment in time that we get of this. So this is a great episode of Saturday Night Live, and I'm so glad that the listeners got this one on the countdown. Is it the best one that we're going to talk about here tonight, though? So we will save that discussion for the end of the show. Let's move out of 50 and talk about number 49 on the list. So we're going to move forward in time here a little bit, just a little bit. We're going to go to our next season, actually. We're going to jump from 16 to 17. So if you're watching in that era, you're going to be, going right along to the premiere of season 17 with Michael Jordan and musical guest Public Enemy. So we get MJ, the greatest basketball player of all time, hosting on September 28th, 1991, the 307th episode of Saturday Night Live. And for a long time, I mean, this episode was known as like one of the best athlete episodes ever. There's a lot of really fun moments here to talk through. Certainly, whenever they did sports specials, there's moments from this episode that make it that proliferated through the years. Bill, why do you think that this one made the 49th spot on the countdown list?
I think there's a few moments here that stick out. So this is what goes back to what I was talking about early on, that really stick out to people. I don't know that Schmidt's Gay is automatically thought of as being in the Jordan episode. That's certainly something that's still talked about to this day. But I think the Stuart Smalley moment with Jordan in the mirror and Swirsky becoming Bulls fans on top of Bears fans, those are the two things that you did see a lot of, as you said, over the years, especially when it came to sports compilations. The episode itself, I don't know, John. We're going to have maybe a debate here. I know you and I disagree on one of the recurring characters that appears in this episode, but I won't even hold that against it. I think there's a couple of sketches in here. MJ's not the greatest host, so you can only be great at a few things. So he's really great at baseball, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, so just to contextualize where this episode takes place in. So, number one, I'll say Michael Jordan coming off his first championship. So, he is seen as the greatest basketball player in the world, but not the greatest of all time at this point. We don't get the 6 championships, 6 MVPs. Like, the perception of MJ now is even greater. So, I think that if Michael Jordan never wins another championship after this episode, I do wonder if the perception of the episode changes just a little bit, like because of how great of an athlete that he became. I think that is like, whoa, you guys got Michael Jordan to host the show. Yes, they got Wayne Gretzky, we got Joe Montana, you got Tom Brady, but like at the time, like I'm just sure like this is a really big deal. And then there are a couple moments here that I said I think are replayed so many times for sports fans, because there's a huge cross section of people who love sports and love Saturday Night Live, and I think that you get to see them in the specials, so you're like, oh man, that MJ episode must be the best thing ever. And the question is it? So we're not going to, like I said, we're not going to do sketch by sketch in terms of like go through everyone for a few minutes, but let's go through the rundown here. Let's talk through this in order and see what really works here. Like I said, there's a couple moments that I think will stand out to us to talk about a little bit more, but we do get a Wayne's World sketch to kick off the episode. So I think that's always, that to me is bonus points, because I think that every Wayne's World sketch is always a lot of fun. I love checking in with Wayne and Garth, especially not watching it live, but like if you're going back in time and watching these episodes and you jump into a Wayne's World sketch, you're getting caught up on a lot of really fun things about like what's happening in the world. And Wayne's World summer of 1991 recap for me like really clicks as somebody trying to understand what was happening at the time this episode aired, Bill.
Yeah, it's so topical, maybe more topical than most of their sketches. We get the Clarence Thomas, Thelma and Louise, the Terminator jokes. So there is a lot going on here that is of its moment. I personally enjoy that because this is my end of my high school career going on here, so I remember these very clearly. Everything that's being talked about here, and this is a great way to start the season. I mean, if you're going to bring out your most popular characters at this moment in time to kick off the show. And I don't remember the last time SNL did anything close to that. So I really do enjoy this in this opening slot.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And again, you're not going to get Dana for that much longer on the show. So it's like, okay, we're sort of nearing, we're probably midway through the run, but still, like, it is something that I think that is always fun when they pop up. Then we're gonna head to MJ's monologue, where we will see him, and then this is something I really like when they do with athletes, is knowing how far they're willing to go. So you would think conventionally, like, there's a lot of people protecting their image and maybe that they don't want to go, they don't want to do everything on the show, or they're not so comfortable because they're not naturally, sketch comedians. But we get Jordan promoting feminine products and porno videos here. So I think if you're questioning whether MJ was game for this episode, clearly he was, based on the monologue. So I thought this was good, Bill.
Yeah, and poking fun at himself. I mean, he was so ubiquitous in every single ad at this moment in time. He was doing all the Gatorade, the McDonald's commercials, so many other ones that too many to count. So kind of poking fun at what he's really known for at this moment. As you said, he's not the greatest player of all time at this particular moment. 6 months before this, he hadn't won a championship, so he's the greatest to never have won. So this is really a big coronation moment for him to be on the show and come here and do this. So yeah, the fact that he is willing to come on here and do this was a lot of fun. I do enjoy this monologue.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about Schmidt's Gay, because this is the one that I think that you said not a lot of people know that it's from this episode because Michael Jordan's not in it. But this Sandler Farley duo, where they're walking around the house and it's a beer commercial, but there's a lot of men and a lot of dance in the pool. And it is a fascinating, I mean, obviously this episode takes place in 1991. So just to talk about, this and how, probably unique it was on television at the time is, definitely a factor here. But it is so, like, interesting about how like happy the whole thing is, right? Like, it's just like everything is like super fun and super enjoyable. And Farley and Sandler are so good in this, the way that they're just enjoying themselves. And like, I feel this is epic. Like, I know a lot of people are like, okay, but like, I think this is an epic commercial, and one of those that really deserves to be on the greatest commercials ever. So what do you think of Schmidt's Gay and it landing here into our countdown?
It absolutely is Mount Rushmore, as we like to say. It's, just go on YouTube and search 80s beer commercials, and the top 50 on that will be women in bikinis of some sort in various forms of undress. This was what every beer commercial was at this point. This is before talking frogs and talking iguanas and, funny slice of life things that Budweiser would do in the early 2000s. So this was the way they were selling beer. So to turn that on its head, and not only turn it on its head, but to bring in the two bad boys. If you had done this with Phil and Dana, it doesn't hit the same way. These are two younger guys who are kind of known as, the male bad boys of the cast at this point, having them out there with all these buff dudes around the pool, and the Van Halen song, which is lost to time for many of the versions of this that we've seen now, was the perfect song. This is up there for me all time.
And I think it's also, you, like you said, you fall in love with this cast, and this better than most here, that like this was your cast, and then these new players come on, and now we've seen them for a year. Sandler joins towards the end of last year. He had been a writer, but they are starting to, figure it out. And he comes into this season, and for the first time, you're sort of seeing on screen this new duo. Because like all of the new people, I think they existed in pockets where you started to figure out like what they're good at. But the actual chemistry, the building of a future cast, I think starts here in season 17, where you're like, oh, okay, well, Sandler and Farley, they can play together. And seeing them in this sketch, I think totally hits, right? The fact that it is them and not some of the older players from the old guard in this one. And there's something like really cool and hip about it. And this could have been like a disaster. I think that's what's interesting, is that like this was, if they had not done this properly, I think it's just like a shit show. But It is, in my opinion, done really tastefully, in a way that even like future eras of the show, like jump forward 10 years, like I don't think that they're doing this tastefully. I think that they're leaning into like some really bad tendencies. in a way that this sketch doesn't. And I think you got to reward that given the time.
Yes, definitely given the time. A lot less tolerance that was seen at that point. This could have been very mean-spirited. This could have been, as you said, even 10 years later, just having two male cast members kiss for the shock factor. None of that was here. This was, not about the sexuality of it necessarily. This was about, look at how ridiculous it looks when we turn all of those ads on its head and see what it looks like, from the female perspective. What they're dealing with on a nightly basis, a moment by moment basis in every single TV show that's on TV. So this was brilliant in its own particular way.
Definitely. And then we get a, sort of like a pretty long sketch next, which is the first Black Harlem Globetrotter. I can't tell if I like it or not, but it is a sketch where Michael Jordan is playing a character in the sketch and he's not playing himself. And he basically becomes the first Black Harlem Globetrotter, but he's like too good. And then obviously there's like some racial issues, and then they kick him off the team. And this one, I think I really like. I want it to work for me, but it doesn't completely work. There's a great line from Mike Myers at one point talking about like, oh, we'll just become the Washington Generals. But like beyond that, I think that like Phil was really good. MJ was okay, but like there was something about this that I think like if it was touched up with a little bit of better writing, I think really hits. And maybe that's one of those things that I think on going through with a fine-tooth comb, I'm like, I wanted this to be better than it was.
Yeah, and I won't repeat the things that Phil says, but Phil's part, he's carrying the heavy load here because, he's using a particular word over and over and over again. And again, something you could not do even 5-10 years after this, even in parody. But I think that what they're trying to go for here in comparing it to the whole Jackie Robinson Branch Rickey thing was really funny, and the whole even when they find Phil in the bedroom with the new cast member Ellen Cleghorn, and he's trying to use the word green and everything. So there's a lot of seedlings here that could have been something, but this is the first sign of maybe a little bit of trouble as far as the host. He's just kind of playing a version of himself. I mean, they did enjoy these old-timey sketches at this point in SNL, which I have no problem with. I think we have a lot of good ones to go by, but it's from A to B. It's not the greatest sketch for sure.
Yeah, I wish, like, I love Phil, so he always wins things over for me. But this is one of those things that I think, in a way, like, I mean, I sort of wish that a better host could have carried it over. But I get, like, this is a sketch that's written for MJ. It just doesn't play in the way that I necessarily wanted it to. I do like the superfan sketch in this episode. It's the third superfan sketch, and the idea that, they're all about the Bears, but they actually have to be about the Bulls because they just won. And then MJ will show up and we get that great moment of Farley dancing later in the sketch. So this is a good addition of the superfans here. And, RIP George Wendt, getting to see him here is really great.
I know. And two very prescient moments in this, which I don't know if you picked out, John. They're trying to make the joke that they always make about the Bears and Ditka, but they're talking about the Olympics that'll be happening the next summer. And they're like, why don't you just play those teams by yourself? You'll still beat them. And sure as hell that would have happened because we were beating teams like Angola by like 70 points. And then there's the joke about being an 8-time champion. Now, he's not an 8-time champion, but he retires for those 2 years between three-peats. Very well could have been an 8-time champion. So Smigel could have been looking into a crystal ball here when he makes the joke. Not a 2-time winner, not a 3-time, but an 8-time all-time champion.
Right. And Smigel, a huge sports fan, by the way, and he's on a big run in this episode here with where we're talking about right now, because he writes Schmitzke with Downey, then he's writing that first Black Harlem Globetrotter sketch, then he's getting the Superfan sketch on, and he's in the Superfan sketch. So this is like an all-star episode for Smigel, who's getting a lot on in this one. But I definitely picked up on that. This is obviously pre-Dream Team, so like nobody knows yet at this point that 1992 US men's basketball team is going to be like the greatest team ever assembled. But I love that line here where he says, "What if you play these teams by yourself?" It is just a really, really good sketch. We get to see Siobhan Fallon in this one as a waiter, so nice time capsule moment. But Farley is just on top of things as he's continuing to announce his heart attacks and dancing. And honestly, like him dancing at the end of the sketch is honestly, it's kind of funnier to me than the Swayze moment. Like the Swayze moment's more epic, but his dance here at the Superfan sketch was really funny for me.
Yeah, I actually like one moment from him better in this, where the whole inner monologue thing, where Jordan's just rambling on and they're all saying "da bears" in their head, and he goes "Polish sausage," and there's just a little bit of drool coming down the side of his lip as the camera pans in on him. Polish sausage. Love that moment from Farley. This is just so great.
It's really good. And then, we do get Public Enemy as a musical guest here. I wouldn't say anything too. Is there something notable about this to you that you want to bring up at all?
I mean, this is a big deal. I think SNL is really ahead of the curve on a lot of hip hop, even at this point in time. So getting somebody like Public Enemy on, I would imagine Jordan had something to do with that, maybe. But yeah, I mean, we've got a #1 song in "Can't Trust It," and they do a really good job here. So no problems here.
Yeah, and we're gonna get Spike Lee later on in a sketch, and then introducing them with Michael Jordan. So, that's obviously an interesting moment there. Then on Weekend Update, so Kevin Nealon's now the update anchor here after Dennis Miller moves on, and we get Reverend Jesse Jackson, who hosted back in season 10, who will come on here to read an edition of Green Eggs and Ham in the driest reading of, of any book ever, and it is so good. Like I thought this was so hilarious. Every time I see it, I laugh a lot at Jesse Jackson doing this. Great moment here on Update.
It's so good, and saves an otherwise anemic Update. I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I love Kevin in a lot of ways, but this tenure gets off to a thud. Like there's just not a lot here. I think there's a couple of funny Pee Wee Herman jokes, which are about 2 or 3 months late at this point. So Jesse Jackson carries Weekend Update for sure.
Yes, for me. I know that there's a lot of people who love Nealon on Update. Never really worked for me. I don't see it. I mean, I don't know, just there's something about like Dennis's energy that I really like. Obviously, Norm, I'm a huge fan of his Update, so it doesn't click for me fully. Okay, let's talk about the Daily Affirmation sketch. So you alluded to this, Bill. This is the one that you think that you and I are going to have a disagreement about. So you mentioned before you're not a fan of this character. Does this sketch itself work for you?
I can be impartial and say yes, the sketch works in and of itself. I think one of Michael's better performances of the night. The whole concept of having the greatest basketball player on the planet come on and have to not be discouraged by the fact that he might not score any points or not get the basket in the or the ball in the basket. And the whole mirror thing is something that we've seen in so many clip shows where Jordan's almost breaking as Stuart Smalley's over his shoulder saying, "I'm good enough, I'm smart enough." I mean, if you're going to give an edition of this would be the one, I guess. As I've said, like probably my least favorite recurring character ever. And I know I shocked you with that in previous conversations.
Every time I hear it, I still get.
And I love Al Franken. I have every one of his books. I think his tenure on the show is fantastic. I just never ever worked for me at all.
Oh, see, I totally disagree with you, and I love that we feel differently about it because it makes for some fun podcasting. But it is so cringy, and like I can handle that. Like I love cringe. So for me, like the idea of seeing like the coolest guy on the planet sitting next to Stuart Smalley, who is basically saying like every time he says like, okay, we're gonna call you Michael J to protect your anonymity. So good to me. Like he just treats him like any other person and then makes him do these things. And I love like I think what I really love about these sketches that doesn't get talked about is like there's so much that goes on in them without being said. Like I don't think it's the piece of paper where you read the text of this sketch that really makes it work. It is the awkward tension of the guests of Stuart Smalley, who cannot believe that they are there and having to go through this, that I think makes these sketches good for me. And this one especially, I think Michael Jordan like playing along with the whole thing at the end, like that whole like turn, and then Stewart's gonna look in the mirror and like you see Michael Jordan like moving his eyebrows up in the background and sort of smiling at the fact that he was in this. That's good. I mean, beyond just the fact that there's like some fun lines, like denial isn't just a river in Egypt, but like I just think the breaking here, the moments, the subtle nature of some of the expressions, like I don't think you give this sketch enough credit.
Yeah, I don't know. I've rewatched these plenty of times, and I do want to clarify, especially for the chat. I did not say the worst of all time. I said my least favorite. So there are worse characters for sure. Some characters that don't age well, things like that. As far as rewatchability for me in the whole history of the show, probably my least favorite recurring character. I don't know. I've watched it so many times, John. I don't know what would turn me on it. Again, I did get some chuckles with the Jordan thing. And maybe if they did more in that vein, where you got people, I mean, you can't do that every week, but if they had done one with Swayze and talked about his looks and things like that, you know, maybe there would have been something more there. But when it focused on Stewart himself, it just never really worked.
Okay. I will give Stuart Smalley the greatest compliment I think I can give to it, which is to say it is Tim Calhoun-esque, in my opinion.
Oh, John.
Yeah. I think that Franken is like playing with the audience. He's down on his luck. That's why I just don't see it. Like I think that there's like Tim Calhoun, by the way, is the SNL character that got me into the show. Like it's one of the first things I've ever seen on Saturday Night Live, and I fell in love with it. But I think Stuart Smalley has a little bit of those qualities. Like he really does. Like the way that he just like knows exactly what he's doing. And I think it's way better than you think it is. So that's fun to have that disagreement at least.
Boy, that is quite a comparison for your all-time favorite cast member and one of my favorite characters in Tim Calhoun.
Yeah. Well, let's head over to the premiere of a new character where we're going to see Ellen Cleghorn in her first episode do Zoraida. So this is the NBC page that gets too close to the hosts. And as Michael Jordan leaves the Stuart Smalley sketch, we're going to head outside of the studio and Zoraida is going to basically berate him. So we get to see some Ellen Cleghorn here in her first episode. Any thoughts on that, Bill?
Yeah, I love the kind of move into this sketch. So he comes off the Stuart Smalley sketch, goes right down the hallway to where Zoraida is. Yeah, this was a really big moment. Probably ends up being Ellen's biggest character, second biggest character, and you know, you thought maybe big things for the first African American woman on the show in 6 years. And unfortunately, it wasn't to be. She had a decent tenure, but this was a great way to start. And I think that there was a lot of funny lines here. Her thinking the Lakers were the same as the Bulls and really getting in his face and, you know, saying what she says. I enjoyed this one.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, this is one of those episodes that, like, if you haven't watched old seasons or old episodes, like, you may have heard about stuff like this. You know, Punky Johnson talked about this a little bit when she was on with us. But when you get a black host, the black cast members tend to have more roles. They get cast as their family. They get put into sketches. And you see that here where Chris Rock's going to get a lot of stuff on. We're going to see Tim Meadows get stuff on, Ellen Cleghorn. So, like, that's one of those things that, like, it doesn't apply as much in modern times, thankfully, but still, this is, you know, still a time where, you know, they went many years without a black cast member, and now they're finally having multiple of them on the show. And you see that come into play here with Michael Jordan hosting the show, which transitions us over to the dark side with Nat X, which is Chris Rock's character here. And he's going to talk, you know, just like Kevin did, going to talk about Pee Wee Herman's movie theater scandal in 1991. So, and then we're going to see, was it Janet Jackson? Which Jackson? Latoya Jackson was being played here. Also an appearance by Spike Lee. Any thoughts on the dark side? I don't think we've ever talked about this sketch.
I like the dark side a lot. And I think this is one of the better versions of it. It's a little concerning that a white woman is playing a black woman. But, you know, this isn't the first or only time that something like that happens. Chris has so many great lines in this. You say Janet, he tells Latoya to move her Janet Jackson ass over on the couch.
That's what.
She's going to be in Playboy a second time, and he says, why would I buy the second? We've already seen everything you got. And Spike Lee seems a little nervous here, which is kind of crazy thinking about what a big star he's about to become. He's already had some really, really big movies at this point. But he seems a little nervous, but Chris carries him through it. This is a lot of fun. And this is the first time that we really see a character of this nature on the show. So I enjoy this one a lot.
Yeah, it's good stuff here from Chris. And then we're going to head over to a Tim Meadows sketch. That's Tales from the Barbecue, which is, I think they did this a couple times, where Tim is basically like an older gentleman and he's talking to his kids and his grandkids about stuff that he did back in the day. And it takes like a weird turn where Phil Hartman like plays a Nazi and he's talking about basically like how grilling pork helped him defeat a Nazi submarine back in the day. And like the whole thing is that this didn't really happen and he's just making up stories to tell his grandkids. But a very like, Tim Meadows certainly like in these times, like we're going to see in, post 95 him find his way on the show. But in these times, he's still like, it's a very slow go for Tim to find his way here.
It's a really interesting sketch, one that I think most people forget. And it's almost, you say about black cast members getting more of a chance when there's a black host. It's almost as if SNL is saying, look, we have 2 black male cast members now. The fact that they have 2 people playing different versions of the same character. Obviously, one's younger and on a boat, and one's at a barbecue. But they're like, yeah, see, we're getting progressive. It's 1991. We figured it out. But yeah, this is a great early moment for Tim. I love Mike and Phil's really bad Nazi accents here. The whole concept of he was able to end the war by seeing when they saw a black man making barbecue during a typhoon on a boat. It's a little convoluted. It's the only time Michael doesn't play a basketball player. So I think that's a good thing here. But yeah, this might be an underrated moment for sure.
Yeah, I would think so. Second musical performance, Bring the Noise. So we're going to see a tribute to Miles Davis here, a moment of silence, which you don't really get on the show very much. Typically, you'll get
Who died that day.
Yeah, and you wouldn't normally see that in modern times. Like you would see, like I said, a car pop up. Miles Davis, I think, performed the show in season 7, if I remember correctly. So yeah, so that was there you go. So we get that tribute there with Spike Lee, and then the final sketch of the night is this elevator sketch that is so weird to me because this is by the way, a 4th Smigel sketch to get on this show. So like he's all over the rundown. Really an episode written by him. But this is weird because this is the 3rd edition of this sketch, except it's typically a Dana and Kevin piece, but Kevin's not in this sketch. And I wonder if maybe that this being his first episode doing Update, they don't put him in the elevator sketch to give him like a lighter load, but it totally doesn't work without the 2 of them.
Totally doesn't work. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, I know you don't have a lot of ways to go with an athlete if you're going to do songs. The other 2 versions are Sting and Michael J. Fox, and they're singing Back to the Future songs with Michael J. Fox, obviously, and Sting songs with the other one. So to sing the national anthem, I think Dana's really trying to pull something out of this, with his, ridiculous singing about this. But this doesn't work. This did not need a 3rd edition for sure.
Did you like this better than Keenan as Kanye alongside season 50?
Jury's out on that. Maybe too soon to tell, John.
All right. So overall thoughts of this episode. So I'll start off here. I'll say this. I think that this episode is largely overshadowed by the Daily Affirmation, Schmidt's Gay, which again, we don't know how many people voted knew that was in this episode, but let's just give our listeners some credit and say that they did. I think those are 2 iconic moments that probably put this in here. Also, how big of a deal Michael Jordan was and how much fun he was having with the episode. The episode itself, though, I don't think this would crack my personal top 50. I think that there's, too many moments that are just okay. I think there's some good sketches in here. I think it's a pretty solid premiere. I definitely wouldn't have watched this live and gone on the Hot Take Show in 1991 and been like, horrible premiere. But I just don't know if this is worthy of a top 50 spot. I'm still debating that for myself, Bill. How do you feel overall?
Yeah, I don't think this makes my top 50 because of all the things you said and everything we said about the Swayze episode, where you felt like you were just kind of on this roller coaster ride of wonderful moments, one after the other. There's a lot of bumps in the road here that don't really work. Is there a dud? Probably not, but there's a lot of, B minus C plus moments going on here. I don't think Jordan's a very strong host, other than being this huge iconic name, even at this point. So yeah, I don't think this would make it for me.
Yeah, I'd say very solidly in my top 100, no doubt.
Sure.
I'm not saying that this is 100 or 90 or 80 or whatever it is. I'm not really sure how, where to parse that, but I would say top 50 would be tough for me because there's a lot of these on this list that would be on my list, and there's some that aren't, and I think this is one that I would probably boot off. So you'll see our final order as we get towards the end of the show. So let's go from 49 over to 48, where we're going to again move forward in time, so you can follow us chronologically here tonight as we move ahead from episode 307 to episode 394 as we move into a new era of the show in season 21 with host David Allen Grier and musical guest Silverchair, season 21, episode 8 from December 9th, 1995. And this is a moment in time that's also very interesting. We are about to premiere in just a few days our Everything You Need to Know About SNL Season 21 video. So you'll hear us talk about this a lot, where the show came very close to cancellation just a few months earlier. They got another season to try and figure it out, and they had some trouble bringing in some hosts early on. A lot of people felt like SNL maybe wasn't the place to go and promote your stuff. Saturday Night Live had to book a lot of NBC talent at the time, people who were either on ER or Friends and stuff like that. And David Allen Grier, coming from In Living Color, was an experienced host who can come in and take over an episode. So overall thoughts, Bill, as we talk about number 48 on the list.
Oh, so exciting to talk about this one. And again, there is that moment that sticks out in this episode that people probably gravitate towards, remembering who the host was in this. But upon, looking at this, the show is really finding its groove at this point. We're 8 episodes in, as you said, on the verge of cancellation that summer. A whole overhaul with Will and Sherry and Molly and Daryl coming in. And this is a really big deal because we've never really had this In Living Color crossover. Obviously, Damon Wayans went from SNL to In Living Color, but not the other way around. After the show was such a huge hit, and he's huge. He's a big stand-up at this point. He's out there, and I think he meshes so well with this cast, as we'll see as we go through this. And it's really just amazing to see the seedlings of what becomes a very, very solid Silver era.
Yeah, I agree. It takes place where the show is really still trying to figure it out. A lot of people who have not watched this era just assume okay, well, Will Ferrell's on the cast, so he must have saved the show. The show must be great. They're still really trying to, figure out what the show looks like. It is something that I would say about this season is it has a very underground feeling that I think you only get in season 1 of the show, where there's it has this dark aesthetic. They're just trying, the set looks different. The opening montage is very classy, taking place, in a bar with a violin, and it's very different feeling than what you got in season 20. There's a lot of turnover. We will not have turnover like that again until probably season 47 to 48. So it is the start of what we, probably look at as modern SNL, but it's just very novel. And I think that they needed a host like David Allen Grier to come into the show to just take over. So I think, what we get here tonight for the first 3 episodes, Swayze, I think he has a huge influence on his episode, but the writing matches up. I think for the second episode, Michael Jordan doesn't really take over. The show feels very sports themed due to him, but I don't think he takes sketches and makes them better. David Allen Grier takes sketches and he catapults them. And I cannot wait to talk about one here that I think we'll do this one first, and then we'll do the rundown. Bill, let's start with Wake Up and Smile.
Oh.
This is, to me, probably a top 10 sketch of all time. It's like, it's that close. Like I haven't done my top sketches of all time, but there's an argument here that this is one of the most brilliant sketches that's ever been on the show. And the combination of Dag with Will Ferrell and Nancy Walls, who doesn't get enough credit in this sketch, unbelievable. So let me get your thoughts on it and we'll talk through it.
I will say unequivocally that it is in my top 10 all-time sketches. Like this is an incredible moment. We're seeing Will for the first time really be Will, really go. I mean, he's done Get Off the Shed, but he is really going out there. I can't believe that there's anybody who doesn't know how this goes, but to set it up, the teleprompter goes out on this very charming, like, morning show, and they don't know what to do. So it's Will and Nancy and Dag, and it just devolves within seconds into this Lord of the Flies thing where they just, they start attacking each other. They don't know what to do. Will becomes very racist, talking about sweeping out the ghettos and making sure the poor people stay away from your red car.
He says, someone should get a group together with guns and sweep out those ghettos.
And it's not even just that. It's his look after he says, it's like, did I really just say that? Like, even though he's off the prompter, he can't believe that those words just came out of his mouth. And to end with, them again, here's an audience reaction when you hear that live show, when Will holds up David's head. And you just hear this audible gasp in the audience. Now, this is 25 years before Sarah Sherman, kids. Like, this was not something that you were seeing on SNL. So they really put their stamp on things here, John.
It is so brilliant, and it is one of those things that, like, it works on a few different levels for me. Number one is everyone who performs in a sketch is so good. Dag's like flop sweat throughout this is amazing. You've seen Will Ferrell in doses, like you saw Get Off the Shed in the first episode. You knew this guy was going to be good, but I think at the time, even, like, people were a little bit annoyed with Will. Like, they thought he was loud. Like, they didn't really know exactly what he would do. But, like, this is the first time you get to see, like, how great of an actor he is, where there's so much going on in his face throughout this episode as he is just, like, internalizing that he needs the prompter to survive, or else the whole world is going to end. And it works for me because, number one, like, I do live events. So, like, I go out and I talk to crowds, and, like, there are times where you can absolutely panic, even on the podcast, right? You can panic when you don't know what to say. Like, we're live in front of an audience. So I think that aspect of things is something a lot of people can relate to. But also, there's, like, a little bit of a meta-ness of this sketch that this takes place, like, on Saturday Night Live, where everyone is supposed to rely on exactly what it says on the cue cards, and that if at SNL the cue cards go wrong, like, it does feel like a Lord of the Flies situation will pop up. So the fact that this gets so ridiculous to the point where Will is holding up Dag's head, yelling, "The weatherman is dead," is, like, one of the best moments in the history of the show for me. And then the prompter fixes itself. And again, like a lot of great SNL sketches, they don't know how to end them. This one goes full circle as it completely goes back to normal. The prompter's working, and they both realize that, like, what did we just do? And it is just such a beautiful story that the show wrote for us in this sketch.
Yes, and as you reference, Nancy Walls, I mean, her and David Koechner do not get enough credit for this season. They're one and done, and they go on to wonderful careers outside of this. But she is just forefront with here, not knowing what to do, starting to cry, and as you said, right at the very end there, sitting back down in that chair as the tears are rolling down her face, and she starts to say, "We'll be right back with Wake Up and Smile," as if nothing has happened. And one of the first instances we get of Will taking his shirt off, which we know is something that he just absolutely loves to do, both on SNL and in the movies. So yeah, a great moment here.
Yeah, and there's, like, we could do a whole podcast on the sketch, but even the name of the show, Wake Up and Smile, is so brilliant for the sketch. The cutaways to commercials that are, like, pre-planned when they have to cut away, like, interstitially to get to the next, like, moment as they're freaking out. Like, it also, like, paces the sketch extremely well. So, for me, like I said, probably a top 10 sketch of all time. Adam McKay, Dennis McNicholas, Tom Giannis. Like, it is a great sketch here. Let's go through the rundown of this episode, because that for me, like, definitely catapults it up in the upper echelon of episodes. So we open up here. So early in season 21, we're seeing a lot of Daryl Hammond and his presence on the show because he's such a naturally great impressionist. He's going to do Ted Koppel here, where the whole storyline is like Michael Jackson hurt his back, and we get this continuous repetition of Jacko on his backo. Do you remember this playing out in real time, Bill? Here, Bill, you're just muted, so let's just make sure we can hear you.
Yeah, Jacko on his backo. I very much remember this moment. Daryl really is, for all the talk of what Will is doing, Daryl's taking over the show at this early moment in time, like with all of his impressions, what he's able to do. And, Nightline might not be the most hip show, even in 1995, to be parodying, but this is a great way for them to cover pop culture events. And Michael Jackson was everywhere at this point, between the trials he was going through, trying to make a comeback. So Daryl's insistence, this everybody who comes on, having Sherry on as Lisa Marie Presley, wanting her to say, I haven't heard anybody say it in a while, say backo. And then eventually cutting to, Tim Meadows as Michael Jackson in the whitest Michael Jackson makeup you've ever seen. I always liked Tim's Michael Jackson. So this is a great moment.
Yeah, it's really good. And it's also one of those things that I think Daryl doesn't get enough credit for. Like, he always gets credit for his impressions and how good he sounds like these people, how much he looks like them. And like, truly, obviously one of the greatest impressions in the history of the show, but he doesn't get enough credit for how much he turns an impression. Like, he goes from imitating Ted Koppel to being like really angry as Ted Koppel in this sketch. And carries this completely by himself. Again, this is talking about a cast member who's only in his 8th episode of his career. He's going to end up being on the show for 14 more years. So obviously we're going to see a lot of him, but great stuff here from Daryl. And then David Alan Grier is going to come on for his monologue, talks about coming back to New York City and people changing. So like a really fun, just building your presence on the show there. I want to talk about the Rocky Roads though, which is, again, these types of sketches always kill me. The ones that are, older people trying to like, entertain children. It's like, that doesn't sound right, but it is just like, I think of another sketch that I love, the Jingleheimer Junction from this era as well. Like, Rocky Roads for me is so great. The chemistry here between all of the players, again, like Nancy's really good in this one. Will is also great. Tim and Dag. What do you think of the Rocky Roads? It will also come back in a second time hosting.
Yeah, this is really, really fun. We're the chocolate and we're the marshmallow, and we're all a little nuts. And we got people like this at our school when I was in school, where they were just, trying to be the hip people and come in and talk to the youth. And when they call Nancy white honky or honky cracker, such a great moment. And another great moment for Nancy here too. I mean, she, as far as the female side of the cast, she dominates this episode. So great to see her in something. The really bad singing that we see as the sketch goes on. I love this sketch.
Yeah, it is really, really great. And it's one that totally gets overshadowed by Wake Up and Smile. But this is, to me, still one of the best parts of this episode. And then the Today Show sketch, which is a sketch, in my opinion. So we get Dag as Brian Gumbel. We get Sherry as Katie Couric. And this is a sketch that David Alan Grier carries on his back. It is not one that I think, if like a lesser host, this is a bad sketch in another episode. David Alan Grier just runs circles around everybody in this as Brian Gumbel.
Yeah, and I wonder how this translates today. I mean, I know Gumbel's kind of still out there, but he, at this point in time, he's the host on the Today Show, very milquetoast, very bland. So to have it cut, and his cuts from, the camera shutting off to him going, "Where are my bitches?" or calling out, David Koechner's character, Willard Scott. Jesus, couldn't think of who it was. It's great. And the whole Milosevic interview where he's asking him about his golf swing. It's so ridiculous. And as you said, nobody else could do this quite this way. Maybe a Jim Carrey in a different kind of role. But this is all based on the host.
Yeah, I got to think that this is like one of those where Lauren is probably watching and is like, damn, like, I know I got a lot of new young talent here, but like, if I could have Dag on this cast, because like, getting to see what he does is really great. And like that, this is like one of those things where I don't think he made our top 50 greatest hosts countdown last year, but like there's an argument that he is one of the greatest hosts of all time. He only hosts twice, but like sketches like these, where he really brings up a sketch, are great. And I think he does that in the next sketch too. I think the Three Wise Men sketch is just okay, but he does a really good job here as Balthazar, who forgot to bring gifts for Jesus, and then goes, asks the other wise men if there's any like shops that are open where you can go buy something, and he'll bring an air freshener and a Chris license plates, and he just says, "Okay, just write a T at the end of it." Like this is totally carried by David Allen Greer.
Yeah, this might be the low point of the night, and it's only works at all because of Dag. Do you know, John, that this is only 5 days before the Friends episode where they do this exact same thing, where Joey and Chandler go to the convenience store and buy Christmas gifts for everybody, and they're buying the windshield wiper and the like. Who stole off who? Because obviously Friends had already been taped.
Yeah, it already been taped. Yeah.
Yeah. But this happened all within a week. That's a famous episode of Friends. Go back and watch.
I mean, that is interesting because Lisa Kudrow hosts earlier in the season, so maybe some word gets leaked out.
She was dropping stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the conspiracy theories there. But yeah, I don't know who wrote the Three Wise Men one. I don't have that one down, but like that is an interesting thing. But I think he does such a good job here. Like I said, I think he completely elevates this one for me, and again, like it's the momentum of it where I think when I'm describing what I was looking for in an episode, like this totally works off the back of Dag. Update has Bill Clinton on it, which again, Daryl's Bill does his first movie review. We get Colin Quinn as Lenny the Lion. Norm is always fantastic on Update, so that always makes a great episode for me. Really love getting that. Is there anything you want to talk about from Update?
No, we get a couple of really funny lines here that become part of Norm's shtick with so the Germans would have you believe, like that's one of those that always sticks out for me, something that me and my friends would always say. Yeah, I mean the Clinton is really good here. It's the beginning of what is the longest running impression in the show's history, right? I mean Daryl is Clinton, does this all the way into the 2010s, so I love his Clinton. I know it's very different from Hartman's, but I think he does a really good job here. The movie reviews didn't always work for me. I liked him more in sketch format, but I think the whole American President movie with the wife being dead is what really sells it. I love this movie.
Yeah. It's like this is all like a few years before Lewinsky. This is before the impeachment. Like this is like early dynamic between Bill and Hillary. Like there's a lot of great political material that's going to come out here over the next few years with Daryl as Bill, but this is a fun one. Thanks Casey in the chat. Mea culpa. So David Schwimmer hosted a few episodes earlier. Lisa Kudrow will host the following season. But still, yeah, we get this like run of like Courtney Cox host in season 20, and we're going to get this run of, Jennifer Aniston eventually too. And or Matthew Perry, Jennifer Aniston. So like there'll be a lot of Friends stars hosting throughout these few years. Anyways, okay. So then anything about Silverchair? Nothing. I don't really know much about them being the musical guest here.
They've kind of been lost to time. They kind of straddled that rock alternate universe that was prevalent in this mid 90s era. They kind of weren't around as long as a lot of these other bands, but I mean, this is a #1 song on the rock charts in Tomorrow. And Pure Massacre is a good song too. So I enjoy this. It brings me back to my college days. So are they an all-time band? No, but I think they do a serviceable job.
Yeah, I don't think there's like an impactful moment here that I think necessarily elevates it into the top 50 here from Silverchair. I would say, and we'll what do we'll call this a Schmitz gay like moment where there's something that happens in this episode that nobody knows is probably from this episode. And let's head over to Spade in America, where David Spade has been asked to stay on season 21. He's not really a part of this cast. He does a few sketches very randomly. He'll be in the Black People sketch following this one, but it's just like he's very rare that he's in a bunch of sketches. And he has his own segment here that's Spade in America, where he's doing a bunch of different stuff every episode, except, I think the fans probably, Bill, and you'll tell me if in real time this was the case, like want him to do Hollywood Minute. Like this is what he grew up, like this is what they grew up with Spade on. They want him to make fun of people. And he has this moment here with Eddie Murphy talking about his career. And he says, look, children, it's a falling star, make a wish. And this was a huge deal because it was attributed as the reason why Eddie didn't come back to the show for a long time. I don't
Yeah.
buy it personally. I'll just say, Bill, like, I want your 2 cents on it, but I never bought it. I never thought like this had anything to do with that. He will come back for the 40th and then host in 45 and has this obviously amazing moment, the 50th this past season. But I think that this is a footnote ultimately. But it is a really fascinating moment here in Spade in America.
Well, yes. First to the Hollywood Minute part. Yes, absolutely. People are jacked that they still have somebody from their former cast, as bad as season 20 is. Myself included. He wouldn't have been the one I picked out of Sandler and Farley and Spade, but he does a good job, and he starts doing these Spade in Americas, and they're all over the place. Like he's at the World Series and he's doing stuff out on the road, and play the hits. So I think everybody wanted to see Hollywood Minute. So this is probably one of his better segments. As far as the Eddie Murphy thing, it's such utter bullshit, because Eddie didn't go to the 15th because he was mad about what Billy Crystal had said about him. And so this is in the next decade. And they're saying that he doesn't come to the 25th because of what Spade says here. No, he didn't want anything to do with the show, period. End of story, in my opinion. Does this attribute to it? Does it make a better story? Probably. But, is Eddie Murphy sitting around watching Spade in America on a Saturday night when he's a huge movie star? Probably not. So I don't think that has anything to do with this.
Yeah, I don't think it really has anything to do with it either. I think that the audience has like a really tough reaction to it. And I think Spade plays with the audience here, which is like great for him. But this probably gets unnoticed if it's not for that. And then it starts to pick up steam. And obviously, like, it's, I know myself, I know what it's like to make a story out of something that people at the show don't see as a big story, but outside it definitely looks that way. And I think that, this was something that I probably would have ignored had it not been for the fact that, and this is something that I'm really excited for you guys to see in the Everything You Need to Know About SNL season 21 video, which is that, like, in doing research about this moment, I hadn't realized that Eddie Murphy talked to the New York Times a few years ago about this moment and mentions how much it hurt him. And I don't know if that was like revisionist history, that he just, feels like so many people talked about it, so he felt like he had to. But for me, that was the first time when I read that, even through the research over the last few months into that moment, I was like, oh, all right, well, this is a bigger deal than I realized. So as far as like iconic moments, I think that that's one of those things that over time that has an impact on the overall viewership of this episode, had you known that that was here. So still very interesting part of this episode. Then we get a couple of sketches towards the end of the episode. We get a sketch called Black People, talking about David Allen Grier as Charles Honeydew Wilkins. Again, in my opinion, so this is him singing. Again, a sketch completely carried by David Allen Grier. What do you think of this one?
Completely. I mean, nobody else has anything to do, really. He's doing his best Louis Armstrong impersonation. He doesn't want to, he doesn't care that he's subservient to white people, and that's all he sings about. And I think this is a fantastic piece, especially this late in the night. This is great. And to have a host not have anything really, again, you've got, like you said, you've got Spade in the background. You can see Keckner back there and Will. None of them have anything to do except kind of be set pieces. This is all about what he's able to do.
Yeah, and I just think it comes at a great time. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if we were doing post-game interviews after this episode, that the cast wouldn't say how much they learned from David Allen Grier tonight, like just getting to see everything he does. And then we're going to get a two-hander here between Tim Meadows and David Allen Grier, who hosts, one of my guilty pleasures is Perspectives from Tim Meadows, who is live at 4:34 in the AM to talk about his late night show. I remember as like a young kid, like staying up very late and seeing like random shows like this, or waking up very early and seeing shows like this. And then we have Dr. Emery Coleman, who's on the show, who's a very similar show to Lionel Osborne. And you were going to get Tim's character on his show, and then seeing them at the 70s. And it's just like, it's a very, very funny end of the night piece. It has that 10 to 1 silly vibes that I look for from an episode. So this was a really fun way to end the show.
Yeah, Perspectives is fun because I think for all the complaining we can do about, recurring characters not changing from sketches, Lionel Osborne, I mean, the character itself didn't really change, but the concept did. So sometimes the guest was just flabbergasted at how stupid Lionel Osborne was. And sometimes it was like this, where they're on equal grounds. And as you know, he has his own show that's on at 4:44 in the morning, and they've exchanged Emmys for all these years. You know, David had the odd years, and Lionel Osborne had the even years, except for that one year they tied, and they showed the picture of them with the big afros. But yeah, this is great, and I think one of those pieces before the Ladies' Man that Tim Meadows is finally showing what he's able to do. And you know, there was a lot of people who were surprised during the summer when they said Tim Meadows was one of the people coming back. And he's really showing his mettle. He's been doing the OJ stuff, but this is one of the characters that really sticks out.
Yeah, and I think that if I remember correctly, I don't think he was asked back. I think that he got hired very close or rehired very close to the premiere. I think they were looking for another black performer to replace him, and they didn't find somebody they wanted, and then they ended up rehiring him. So it's like also a weird story. And you know, Tim's legacy completely changes in the second half of his career, where he finds his footing, and he is a major part of these seasons. And he plays really well. Like, if anything, like you look at the Rocky Roads and this sketch, like you sort of think to yourself, like, okay, with the exception being Will Ferrell, like perhaps Tim Meadows was the best cast member opposite of Dag in this episode, and may have been like the cast MVP for that week. So, you know, Wake Up and Smile is obviously this huge moment, but still, it is a really good episode for Tim Meadows as well. And here's the thing, Bill, is that I think, and we'll talk about this with the rankings, I think I favor this episode to a lot of ones that will be on this countdown, because I know this isn't a countdown of the greatest hosts of all time, but I do believe that a host, you know, building an episode up and making an episode really great is success for the show. Like, I think that they bring somebody in, and an otherwise average host or a replacement host will never remember this episode, but because David Alan Grier was here, this catapults onto this list here. And it's not going to work for everyone, but for me, like with the place and time that this episode airs, the beginning of season 21, how important it is for them to figure the show out by this time, to me, this deserves its spot on the list.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of those things I was saying at the top. The host isn't necessarily going to be something that I look at as we move up the list. But in this scenario, in this case, it absolutely is a factor. I mean, it's something we talk about to this day, right? Where, you know, the host carries an episode, where there's other episodes where the host just kind of fades into the background or makes a bad episode worse. He makes a good episode great, and maybe one of the greatest of all times.
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's close the book on this episode, December 9th, 1995, and let's move forward in time. This is the first time we are doing one of these countdown shows, and we're very lucky today to get to present to you all of our episodes in chronological order. It just worked out that way. So we're going to jump forward. This time, our biggest leap forward, as we're going to move forward, about 13 years into Anne Hathaway hosting season 34, episode 4. This is episode number 640 from October 4th, 2008. So season 34, to me, Bill, potentially the greatest season of all time. It is definitely in an argument for that there. We are right in the middle of some heavy politics in October of 2008 when Anne Hathaway is going to host here for the first time. And there's a lot of interesting stuff to break down with host Anne Hathaway and musical guest The Killers. So, Bill, what do you think? Number 47 on the list.
It is a great episode. It's funny that what we started with was a minute and a half cold open, and we've now jumped to 14-minute cold open in this episode. Yeah, this is a very, very interesting time, all based on the fact that John McCain picked someone who looked exactly like Tina Fey, and they just had this moment to do something with this. You've got that. You've got the whole Barack Obama thing going on at the beginning of his almost being elected at this point. Yeah, so this is really great. And she is one of those hosts that we scratched our head about last year, John, why she hasn't come back in so long, why she stopped at 3, hasn't been back in a long time. And this is the beginning of that journey. And I think this is a really, really good episode to look at to see why she's so well regarded among SNL fans.
Yeah, I definitely think that people supporting Anne Hathaway and wanting to see her back now that we got John Hamm and Jack Black back is probably, like, she's probably at the top of the list now of people that, it hasn't been there in a long time, is seen as one of the greats. And this is her first time on the show. And there's going to be a lot to talk about with Anne from this episode. But I think naturally the best place to start here is with that cold open. So we're going to see this really long cold open. I think this is the third time that we're seeing Tina Fey as Sarah Palin. We got those, two really interesting moments with her opposite of Amy Poehler. The episode 1 from this season of one of like the most epic sketches ever with the Palin and Clinton stuff. I Can See Russia from My House. And then we're going to get the Katie Couric interview. And now we're going to get the vice presidential debate, which I think, at the time was, and I was there through this, like, everyone was so excited to see how SNL was going to handle this. This is the first time we really get to see Sudeikis as Biden. We're going to see him play him a couple times the season before, but he hasn't nailed the characteristics down. And this time he's playing him in the way that you remember Sudeikis as Biden. And there are a lot of really great iconic lines. These debates are living in the shadow of the 2000s debates, because 2004 on SNL was not a great year for politics. But 2008, everyone is hoping, okay, are we going to get like a Bush Gore thing? And because of Tina Fey as Sarah Palin and how popular that made the show, the expectations were insanely high for this cold open. And I think they hit a home run with this one. We get to see Queen Latifah come back as Gwen Ifill, who she played in one of her hosting gigs. And then a lot of great back and forth here between Sudeikis and Tina Fey, who is no longer on the show as a cast member, but comes back and plays her. Let's talk about this one, Bill. What do you think about the VP debate?
Yeah, so let's get the bad out of the way first. So this is the first seedlings that we get of just what we get to this day of just repeating what the idiot politician said instead of writing new material. And Palin made that very, very simple, as Trump makes that very, very simple. So that's the bad part. I'll get that out of the way. This is an underrated debate sketch. I don't think anybody talks about this one. They talk about the 2000s. They talk about the Chevy and Aykroyd one. There's some really good debates that go under the radar. And it is that moment for Sudeikis. Still my second favorite Biden of all time out of the 10 that we've gotten behind Dana. And this is perfect for this time. This is what Biden was like at this point. Now he's portrayed as this doddering old man and things like this. He was the one who couldn't keep his mouth shut, who said, ridiculous things that, eventually when he did become vice president, Obama would have to cover for him. But this is a great moment between two heavyweights in Sudeikis and Tina Fey. I love this. I love everything about this.
Yeah, so I don't know about what circles you're in, but like in mine, this is one of the best debate sketches ever. I know that it's not Bush Gore. I know that there's other ones that probably come season 14 episode 1. Like there's a lot of really good ones, but to me, like this easily cracks like the top 5, top 10, maybe like somewhere between 5 and 10. Like I think this is so good. Again, like there could be a natural letdown after seeing Tina as Palin after those 2 times of being like, okay, well, we've seen this before. Like, is she going to continue to maintain that momentum? But I thought that they did so great. I believe marriage should be a sacred institution between 2 unwilling teenagers. I mean, just that crushes me. Are we not doing the talent portion as she takes out like the flute? So good. And then Sudeikis is Biden, like, again, could have been a dud. And they just found a way to like match wits here where he says like, I really wanted to go at her, but Joe Biden is better than that. You hear me? Joe Biden is better than that. And like that, again, Sudeikis like catapults there into the legends of SNL cast members when he does stuff like that.
Yes. And the whole same-sex marriage thing is really a fun time capsule to think about, even with his response where, they should be able to go to the hospital and see them in the hospital, but he's still against same-sex marriage. We're right around the corner from the tide that would take us into a more progressive era with that. And Biden's kind of the leader in that because of a gaffe he made. He came out before Obama was ready to say that he was for same-sex marriage and said it himself in real life. So this is really funny to think about how this is just maybe about a year or so before that happens. And yeah, this is, I love his lines about Scranton, being from Scranton. Scranton's a hellhole. Nobody's ever come out of there except for me. Sorry, Joe, I've got to disagree with you there. I've come out of there. Yeah,
You made it here, Bill.
yeah. I mean, he is just really on his game here. Sudeikis is an all-timer.
Yeah, it is so good. And then we go to the monologue, which is a pretty basic monologue from Anne Hathaway talking about how she got an email from a Nigerian prince. I think this is just coming after her divorce, which is like a real thing. And like it's kind of cute, nothing too special. We get the Lawrence Welk show here, which we've seen so many times since then. So you would think like, okay, there's nothing big here. But just to put, contextually, this is the first Lawrence Welk Dooney sketch that we're going to get from Kristen Wiig, who is starting to like really take over the show. I think that season 31, 32, she's sort of like part of the ensemble, but in 33, 34, she really does start to take over, and this is a big one for her, Bill.
Yeah, this is a big moment. It's funny to look back on this because I think what makes some of them very successful when we see subsequent Lawrence Welk is the male singer that's coming in and being harassed. So it does lose something from that, but there is something about it first. And again, here we go with the audience reaction. When Kristen turns around and they see her forehead, you can just hear the audible gasp and laughter of the audience. It's a great moment. We're getting Amy in one of her last sketches before she leaves to have her baby. I think we're only 2 weeks out from that. So yeah, I've always liked the Lawrence Welk sketches. Maybe they did them a little bit too much, but this really kind of showcases what Kristen's able to do for sure.
Yeah, it's great stuff here from Kristen Wiig. And you know what? Like I know that this character is not everyone's cup of tea. I still find it so funny, and I do like, in a way, how refreshing it is that there is no male counterpart for her to go after here. It's just that the sisters, there's like this storyline of how the sisters are all trying to like impress the audience that they're on TV. And also the reaction from Fred Armisen as Lawrence Welk being like, what is wrong with this woman? And it is very funny. I remember it premiering and being like, that was really good from Kristen, who is clearly the star of the show. And then we get another political sketch. So like in another world, no election, you would think that this is probably the cold open. But we get to see one of the last appearances of Jason Sudeikis as George Bush, talking about the bailout there. And we get different cast members coming on talking about why they should get some money and all of that. What did you think? Anything here, Bill?
This is a parade sketch. It's okay. There's a couple of moments here I think that are key just to the history of the show. I can only think of 2 other times, John, and I don't know if you'll have any others, where a cast member plays 2 presidents. Now, Biden hasn't been president yet, but either in the future or currently. So he plays Biden in the open, and then he plays Bush here. Can you think of the 2? I'm going to put you on the spot.
There's 2 other times where a cast member plays 2 different presidents in an episode.
Yes. And it's not the ones you would think. So it's not Aykroyd. It's not Hartman.
It's not okay. Does Dana do?
No.
Nope. I'm trying to think.
One's been in recent times, and one goes back to season 33.
Oh, so did James must have done Biden and Trump in an episode.
There was only one episode where he did both. They were alternating. Remember a whole season 48 when we were talking about that. The only other time that I can think of is
it Daryl? Like Daryl did.
It is.
Okay, yeah, because he must have done Trump in an episode where he also did Clinton.
No, that's crazy, right? You would think so with all the times he did Trump. He did Jimmy Carter and Bill Clinton in season 33. So I could have missed 1 or 2, but those are the only 2 that I could think of that played both the 2 presidents in one episode.
I love that. That is so good. Wow. What a great stat there from Bill. I think another Bill is really good in this sketch. I think Bill Hader is really great. And I think that this is the point in SNL history where Bill Hader is like slowly starting to ascend to his dominance. And I think you get to see like how much more of a mature performer he is already at the beginning of season 34. Like there's a lot of like the reason why I think Season 32, I think, is probably my favorite season, but season 34 clicks on a lot of levels. It has the hype. The episodes are good and consistent, but also all the cast members are probably headed towards the height of their powers, if not already. And I think you get that in an episode like this, where you get to see like how good every cast member is in the show. And, we go from that. We go to a sketch with Anne Hathaway and Bobby Moynihan, the Boys Night Out sketch. And Bobby, a new cast member here on the show, like fits in, like I said, like a glove, like just so beautifully done here in this one. Anything from Boys Night Out that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, it feels like a spiritual successor to Dancing in the Dark, right? I mean, this is the creepy guys trying to, and Bobby figures it out with the hot girl and Anne Hathaway, and they do this ridiculous dance together. The whole slow motion of the guys at the bar as Andy Samberg walks by as the waiter in real time and looks at them like, what the hell is going on here? And then they eventually leave together. I mean, it's a short and sweet moment, and I think we get to see Bobby has a great night here. So I think that's something to really look at. Bobby and Casey. Casey had joined earlier in season 33, but they both have really good nights here.
Yeah, they do. I think that this one probably gets overshadowed in people's minds from the following episode, where Amy Poehler has her brilliant "I'm No Angel" sketch as she's dancing pregnant around the bar. And I think like that one, I think a lot of people do remember, but this one not as much. But it's a pretty solid sketch here. We get a digital short that I also think is probably not as well remembered. It's sort of like a series of shorts. And if you ever listen to the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, sometimes they talk about like they wanted these more, subtle shorts that go back to their original days back in season 31. So these extreme activities competition that they're going to be, Kristen Wiig is the ref, and they're going to be having some fun here. And it is it's like a fun digital short, but nothing like epic in the way that we would normally get.
I tend to disagree. I think this is a really good moment here along the lines of Andy punching people in the face. There's not a lot going on as far as dialogue here. It's mostly about the music and the actions that are happening. We don't see Kristen in a lot of these, so I think that's really fun. I think this was pretty high up for us on the Superfan episode where we talked about Lonely Island. But yeah, I like everything about this, including your boy Forte psyching himself up in the mirror and trying to get going when he realizes what's happening.
Yeah, the dynamic between Forte and Andy in these is always really funny. It's like a good side plot that happens. And I think I said Kristen as a ref, I meant Kristen opposite of Andy. But I think that it's fun. These were the ones that like, I could only relate it back to my personal experience, which is that he would obviously have these like epic digital shorts that would come later in the season. That like I like Jizz in My Pants, and then I'm on a boat, and like those were the ones that like, for me and my friends, we were like going crazy too and playing them and stuff like that. But there were other people, like peers of mine at school, who would also then perfectly imitate the people punching people before eating and the extreme activities competition. So like, I definitely think that they were appealing, and these totally work. They're just, to me, like I just know like how big and grand they can get with them. So it doesn't stand out to me as like, okay, this is on a greatest of all time episode, but it is something that's still interesting. We get music from the Killers. Any thoughts here on the Killers?
Love the Killers. I think we get a couple of good performances here. Human's a huge song. So love seeing them on here. I think I don't know how many times we've gotten them on the show, but this is one of their better performances.
Yeah, it is. It's the third time that we get to see them on the show. Actually, so my wedding's in a few weeks from now. I don't know if I have said that on the podcast, but my wedding's in a few weeks from now. And our wedding band told us that we can make a few requests to the band. So one of our special requests for the band to learn and play at our wedding is the song "Mr. Brightside" by the Killers. So one of the all-time great party songs. So for me, not Human or Spaceman, but they do a very, very solid job here on the show. One of my favorite moments in this episode naturally is Will Forte on Update, who just crushes. Like, if you haven't watched him do this on Update, it is so fun. I could watch this a million times over, and it doesn't get talked about because of all the great stuff he does. But like, we get his birth name. He's introduced by his birth name. He comes on, he talks about the recent bailout votes, and he wants to explain how everyone voted. And he has this song where he's like, he basically says like, Bilkini yay or Bilkini nay. And then he goes into all of them and lists them. And Amy, as we are in the Seth and Amy, like update edition. And this is so good from Amy, who keeps stopping Will Forte, as he eventually will turn to her and say, in a lot of cultures, it's polite to interrupt someone when they're doing a song. And it cracks me up every time, Bill.
And then he has to start at the beginning again, right? So he's gone through, and there's only 522 more names to go. His hand expressions as he does the nay or the yay, the smile on his face. I mean, if C-SPAN had Forte on for votes, there'd be, you know, their viewership would increase 100-fold, because just having somebody out there explaining how these people voted, not why they voted, but how they voted. It's such a great moment for Forte, for sure.
Such a good moment. And like you said, the fact that he like wants to restart the entire song as if this is going to take the rest of the episode is so great. And like there's a fun thing here of like the show isn't dangerous anymore, but Will Forte potentially causing the entire show to just be him singing because he wants to, on live television, continue to do his song, adds like another layer to this performance. It is great. I think probably one of the more memorable parts of this episode is the post-update sketch, the Mary Poppins supercalifragilistic expialidocious sketch. Great performance here from Bobby Moynihan, where we essentially find out like what does the word really mean, and it turns out that it is a disease that Mary Poppins has given to her lovers, as we see a really great Bill Hader performance opposite of Anne Hathaway, who again were great together in the bailout press conference sketch. I think Bill Hader is fantastic opposite of Anne in this sketch as well. We're also going to get some fun stuff from Will Forte, so I think that sketch has to be part of the reason why this makes the cut here.
Yeah, one of Anne's better performances of the night. You know, not to pull out the strings of how a liver disease could be transmitted through adults through sexual activity, but sure. And yeah, but Hader as Dick Van Dyke in Mary Poppins is just so great, with the whole drum on his back and the horns. The look on his face when he realizes that she's also giving it to Forte, and she just has this incredible look on her face, like, oh, well. Yeah, I really, really love this. Bobby's great in this. Casey's great in this as well, as the kids. And Bobby wants to keep singing the song, and Casey has to hit him.
Yeah, just really solid stuff here from Anne. It just shows you, like, there's already a few sketches we talked about how solid Anne is. She also fits in really well with the news sketch we're going to get, which is basically newscasters going viral on YouTube. But again, like, that's not as popular as it is now, as it was, you know, in 2008. Like, that's just sort of just starting. But I think the cast has a lot of fun here. Not super memorable, but a fun, solid sketch post Mary Poppins, and probably sandwiched in between two epics.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, these were almost all based on actual news clips from YouTube. So like Forte throwing up and Bobby being afraid of the iguana were based on actual news people, I think was the case. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. Sudeikis laughing through the fire destroying the home, and yeah, Anne's really good in this as well. It's funny to see, you know, YouTube being a sensation at this moment in time. I'm glad it's still around. I mean, it's aged better than MySpace at parodies and things like that.
Yeah, thank you for continuing to be a home for us over here,
Yes.
YouTube. So this is it's a fun one, but of course, Mark Wahlberg Talks to Animals is in this episode. Probably gets the Schmitz gay treatment for this episode, where we have another sketch that people don't realize is from this episode. You know, probably on the casual perspective, but the real fans of the show know that this is where this originated, where we get Andy Samberg as Mark Wahlberg talking to animals. This is going to be I think this is the first instance of this, and then later in the Christmas episode hosted by James Franco. When is the one where Mark Wahlberg actually shows up?
Brolin, I think.
Oh, it's Brolin. It's next one. Yeah, it's next week. Sorry.
Yeah.
I want to get my timeline correctly. It's been a while, but shows up the following week and gets pissed at Andy, and it is just like great if you're watching the show live to see that develop the way it did. But this is so good.
You eat apples, John, right? I produce Entourage.
Say hello to your mother for me.
Yeah, anytime we get animals, it's great. Andy plays this so well. I don't know that I've ever bought into the hype that Wahlberg was actually pissed off at this. It feels like how quickly they were able to get him in to do the next episode, or so it's
Brolin's the next one. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so which is also known, of course, for the actual Palin showing up and things like that. But yeah, this is really great. Andy, not always known as the strongest live sketch performer. So having him in this one-hander with a bunch of animals is just really, really great.
Yeah, again, it's just like one of those things that when we talked about Andy's career, it is like you don't really talk about his live performances as much. We talk about Blizzard Man, but we don't really talk about this very much.
Do we?
I think we do. And I think Andy's talked about this. He did an interview on Fly on the Wall. He's also talked about this on the Lonely Island Seth Meyers podcast, where he says that this was a Harper Steele idea that he ended up including on the show eventually. And Harper wasn't a writer there at the time, but it is it is like a really, really funny piece here, followed by a Sudeikis sketch, which has like a really interesting flip on like he's pretending to be the gay roommate of Anne Hathaway, but he's secretly not gay. And it's almost there for me, Bill. It doesn't fully land, but it is something that I think like they had a good thing going for a while. Did this play for you?
It's pretty good. I think it gets by on the charms of Sudeikis and Anne. The reveal that he was pretending to be gay, except for when he was sleeping with the 30 or 40 or 50 guys, was a kind of a funny reveal. But yeah,
I did that for you.
Yeah, but Hader is really good here as the boyfriend. Still going to go do his Village People cover band, regardless of not having to pretend to be gay anymore. So yeah, I think this is cute this late in the night. I don't think it's an all-timer, but it's carried by the host and Sudeikis.
Yeah, again, charm from Anne Hathaway here. Sudeikis is having a really great episode. And then we're going to end on rookie Casey Wilson getting, one of her big moments on the show where she's going to play the less provocative songs of Katy Perry. I Kissed a Girl is the song that is, took over in the summer of 2008. And now she's going to sing different versions of that. And it is, again, a moment in time in the SNL history of like, okay, Casey's going to lead a sketch. How is she going to, Amy's on her way out of the show. Like she's very pregnant. She's obviously headed towards the end of her career. How is Casey going to jump in and, be a part of this great crew of cast members? And she has a moment here where she should shine. Does she though, in your rewatch of this, Bill?
I think she does. I think it's just very dated at this point. So it's really hard in a world of WAP to think that I Kissed a Girl was so controversial. It's really kind of crazy to think about. And the thought that Katy Perry was only going to have that one song and it was about kissing a girl. I think Casey does a very good job here singing the song. It is obviously one note, no pun intended, of, I ate a snack, I kissed, or I carried a cat. Like, okay. But it's quick in and out. They don't drag it on too long. And they're always good with these musical parodies of, CDs or LPs. So I think this works okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's okay. Again, I mean, Casey, still probably has some ups and downs, and it's a bumpy ride for Casey here. I'm glad that she got this so early on in her career. I think that this was supposed to be on the first episode, and then the third episode, and finally lands on the fourth episode. So it felt like one of those things that maybe the show didn't have a lot of confidence in, but they wanted to give Casey that role. So whenever they had like some extra time at the end of an episode, they decided to put that in there instead of some other sketches. So again, this is okay. This is a fascinating episode, Bill, because I thought Anne Hathaway is a brilliant performer. She's a great host, totally justified to be on the top 50 host countdown. I think there's a lot of really great episodes from season 34. Again, I can argue that it is one of the greatest seasons of all time, just consistency. This is probably very good. Is it great? That's the question. Like, does this land for you in the top 50 if you were doing your own list?
I don't think it does. I'm not sure because I think you have this epic cold open, but we get a lot of those moments in this season. So does this get above the Katie Couric interview? Does this get above the Hillary and Palin thing that opened the season? I don't know. It's probably up there. And then you have a couple of really, really good moments in Boys Night Out. And the digital short, but there are a couple of sketches that I don't know that I would put. I don't think there's any duds. So putting this in a top 100, top 80, probably safe, but I don't know that I would have this in the top 50.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think that, there's still more episodes to come down the road. Will they be from this time period? We shall see over the next few weeks. But like, there are a lot of episodes from around here that I think you can argue should make the cut. I mean, Brolin and Adele the next week, I think, is an episode that you can argue could be on this list. John Hamm Coldplay the following episode. I mean, think about the run we're on here. Like, Anna Faris is pretty good the week before. Hathaway, Brolin, John Hamm, Ben Affleck, David Cook is a pretty good episode, if I remember correctly. Paul Rudd, Beyonce, epic stuff there in that episode too. Then we get Tim McGraw, Lucas Tuhane. I think that was a replacement episode for JT. But then Malkovich and T.I. will come up a little bit later, and Hugh Laurie, Kanye West for the fall of 2008 is littered with epic episodes. I am really happy to be able to talk about Anne Hathaway and some of the perhaps more underrated moments from season 34 that we don't always get to talk about. But this probably makes it on this list because people love Anne. They want to see her back at the show. The VP debate sketch is one of the classics. There's some good stuff here with Forte and Mary Poppins and even Mark Wahlberg. But I don't know that this is in the pantheon of greatest episodes of all time. I think probably for me, like just off the top of my head, this probably should be somewhere in the 50 to 75 range all time. But still really good and happy that we got to talk about it here. So, Bill, we reached the point of the episode where we're going to have some fun. I always love getting to the end of these with you. So let's talk about what we think are the top 4 episodes from this episode. And we're going to continue this process all the way through over the next 14 weeks as we talk through the top 50 episodes of all time. So just to recap, the first episode that we had talked about here at number 50 was Patrick Swayze and Mariah Carey from season 16. Then we got Michael Jordan and Public Enemy from season 17, followed by Dag and Silverchair from season 21, and then Anne Hathaway and The Killers from season 34. So what I'm going to do is that you sent me your list. I will put it up on screen, and let's talk through here what we think are the top 4 episodes and see if there's any differences between our 2 picks. And then we'll ask the people in the chat here to let us know who's winning so far. So here we go. Up on screen. For those, you might have to make this full screen. I'll continue to work on being able to show this. But basically, the host rankings on the left. So we got 47, 48, 49, 50. Hathaway, David Allen Grier, Michael Jordan, Patrick Swayze. My top 4 for this list is Swayze at number 1. I think that he absolutely carries the episode with great writing. And because of that, I think that that is the combination I'm looking for an all-time grade. David Allen Grier continues to push that episode up the list. It is a very important episode. So that's number 2 for me. I got Hathaway here at 3. Really solid stuff in the episode, but maybe not to the level of Dag and Swayze. And then Michael Jordan is my number 4. Probably better remembered than it is an all-time great episode. Bill, what are the differences from your list and my list, and explain to the audience how you put your top 4?
Yeah, talking through it, as often happens on these shows, I think I might be more in line with yours. I started with Swayze at number 1 as well. Hathaway I had at number 2, and David Allen Grier at number 3, and Jordan finishing out at the 4th spot. But yeah, after talking through this, I think I might have to flip Dag and Hathaway, because overall, looking at the whole episode and seeing what Dag was able to do in a very uncertain time is probably worthy of being put ahead of Anne.
Yeah, I will say what we say every year when we do these lists are fluid. So Bill and I reserve the right to talk through these episodes, change up the list, and we are only going to lock in our top 50 at the end of this countdown. So Bill will come in next week. He can make some changes, and we'll add in the next 4 episodes as we talk through 46, 45, 44, and 43 next week. And we will do that with some of our very special friends over at Patreon who will be joining us throughout the entire countdown. So I'm really looking forward to having some more people on here to talk through some of the greatest episodes of all time. So if you want to register for that, we already have a bunch of people signed up for these shows that they put in their time slot. So I will contact people throughout the week for the next few shows. And you'll usually know about a month in advance for what show you're being booked for. So if you haven't heard from me yet, don't worry. You will hear from me no matter what when you sign up for the countdown. So form out now on Patreon. Like I said at the beginning of the show, as a special thank you to all of our supporters at Patreon, I will also be posting links to these episodes over at Patreon, so you can watch them between now and next week's show. They're only going to be available between now and next Monday night when we start the show. So, get them while they're hot and go over there so you can watch and talk about what you thought. And then next week when we're back, I want to know, did we get anything right? Did we get anything wrong? You can leave your comments here on YouTube to talk about all of the things that we went into tonight. And if you want to join us in the live chats, like I said, every Monday night at 8 all summer long, we really get excited by having a live group here to break down these episodes with us. And that's the best part, Bill, is doing this as a community. So thanks to everyone who voted and is participating this entire summer. Bill, what a way to start off this countdown. What a night.
What a night. And to continue what you're saying here about the chat is bringing, as always, some great observations as we talk on this very first episode of the summer. And I expect nothing less from this band of amazing people. And the voting, I mean, again, you never know going into this. I said it with the host countdown a lot last year. If people are going to not necessarily get it right, but being able to look at the entire swath of the show. It's a long, 988 episodes is nothing to sneeze at. So being able to get it even close to right is pretty impressive. So hats off to everybody. And what a great way to start.
Yeah, can't wait to reveal this countdown week after week and show you guys how good of a job you did with this list. It is really a fantastic one as we break it down. And Bill has no idea, by the way, what's coming up on the countdown list as we go. So I'm only revealing things to him after the shows. So he is not spoiled at all on the upcoming episodes as we go. Hope you can check out what we have for you on Thursday night here on the YouTube channel, where we will be premiering finally the return of everything you need to know about Saturday Night Live. So if you enjoyed our conversation about the David Allen Grier episode, you will really enjoy getting to see the entire season 21, talking through all of the episodes from there, all of the major storylines. So that will be available Thursday, June 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern here on the SNN. Of course, we'll have season 22 coming up very soon after that as well. So a summer full of everything you need to know, and our countdown here of SNL's greatest episodes of all time. If there's any modern news about Saturday Night Live that breaks concerning season 51, Bill and I will be around to cover it. So we will talk through that as well throughout these shows. So it's definitely important to never miss anything that's happening here. Turn on your notifications when we go live. Subscribe to the podcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify, so you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at the SNL Network. We will post these graphics that we have up on screen on our Instagram account and our X account about 1 week after we do these shows, so we don't get to spoil anybody. And then you can look through and discuss and debate whether these episodes landed in the right spot. I want to thank LateNighter.com for being our presenting partner for the show here tonight, everyone in the live chat, and my man Bill Kenny for joining us. So on behalf of everyone here at the SNN, my name is John Schneider, and we will see you next time, everybody. Have a good one.